Welcome all to our informal session. We got a nice gallery today. Patrick, why don't you go ahead and get things going?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, at this time, we'll continue with our operating budget departmental briefings. And right now, we'll be joined by Chief Judge Monego. The Honorable Chief Judge Monego will come and brief on the General District Court. All right, the floor is yours, Chief Judge.
Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. My name is Sandra Monego. I am the Chief Judge of the Virginia Beach General District Court. I am joined today by our lovely Clerk of Court, Pamela Pringle, our Deputy Clerk of Court, Susan Hefner. Here to ask for a little bit of money. It's pretty unusual for you all to hear. General District Court is composed of 7 judges and 64 of the most dedicated, hardworking, underpaid, overworked employees in the state, present company excluded for sure. We have 2 criminal courtrooms. We handle everything on the felony matters from start to finish, through the preliminary hearing stage, on the misdemeanors, everything through sentencing. We have 1 dedicated courtroom for DUIs only. We have 2 traffic courtrooms, and we have 2 civil courtrooms. Today, I'm here to talk to you about our civil courtrooms. We have the largest number of civil filings in the state. And yes, that means more than Northern Virginia, with 64 full-time employees, and Northern Virginia has 100 full-time employees. So, civil type cases, our civil cases are anything from a car accident case to landlord-tenant issues, garnishment proceedings, construction, breach of contract, credit card debts. I mean, you name it, that's our civil courtroom on a daily basis. These cases are absolutely paper-intensive, labor-intensive filings. They require a lot of staff and a lot of processing. We are state employees, but the city has been kind enough in years past for a memorandum of understanding to provide a small stipend. We are asking for additional funds for that stipend, again, to try to keep some of our dedicated employees employed right where they are so we don't lose them. So the first budget item we were requesting is the additional $54,000 a year to increase that stipend to a $2,000 per year stipend for each of our employees. The next biggest problem that we have, I should have given this to you, Susan. Sorry. All of the new camera violations that are coming to the city of Virginia Beach, school bus stop arm cameras, school zone cameras being proposed, work zone cameras being proposed, and a brand new section of HOT lanes that will fall within the jurisdiction of the Virginia Beach General District Court. Those numbers are extensive. The HOT lanes, they're expecting 13,200 violations per year. Those are supposed to start probably next month. The school zone cameras, expecting 10 school zones is my understanding, anticipating about 3,700 of those violations. And that's before we get into work zone violations as well. So again, all of those things have to be processed. All of those things have to be scanned and accessible to the public if they want to come see them, and that requires staff. Things that are not considered in some of these budget numbers that I just want to bring to your attention. The General District Court is responsible for processing all of the civil commitment paperwork for mental health cases that are heard by special justices or the magistrates. All of those civil commitment papers have to be scanned, tagged, made confidential, and held onto. Again, that is a very labor-intensive process that does not show up anywhere in our numbers of filings. Same with the emergency protective orders, those being issued by the magistrate. Our staff has to scan, maintain, and keep confidential as well. So those are numbers that are just kind of in the background that I just want everybody to be familiar with. The other item that we're asking for, again, goes to staffing. We're asking for an additional $142,584. That's not a magic number. That's just 5 part-time employees. That's broken down. We go through Abacus staffing, and that's the actual number for those part-time employees. That will greatly help us try to process some of this paperwork. We are 100% e-summonses now for both Virginia Beach Police Department and the state police, and those numbers are steadily increasing. Again, maybe with the ease of it, again, kind of fluctuates through summertime hours. Obviously, our DUI numbers go up, our traffic numbers go up from people visiting the area. So those part-time staff we can kind of maneuver around. We are cross-trained among all of our jurisdictions, all of our divisions, our traffic division, our criminal division, civil. We try to cross-train all of our employees, so it's not, we can grab one from one division and put them in another one if we need to. So we'll spend your money wisely is what I'm saying. To echo some of my previous colleagues that I think have already spoken to you on another day, our courthouse was built in 1989. It is in absolute need of updating. There are some very serious ADA compliance issues, some very serious security issues, things that we were lucky enough to sit down and have an open conversation with Mayor and Vice Mayor, DJ Hansen, Ms. Krosky, Mr. Duhaney. I can't thank you enough for being willing to come and sit with us and kind of hear some of our concerns. Keep in mind, it's not just that building from 1989. I have workspaces that are original to the building. We are literally gluing desks down and trying to pick and choose parts from around the building to try to create safe workspaces for our employees as well. So don't think I won't be back next year asking for more money for some of those things. I really do appreciate everyone's time, and I know this is a daunting task. Everybody has a really good reason why they need your money, but hopefully you'll consider our needs. Any questions?
Okay, any questions at all? Amelia and then Barbara.
For your presentation. Please, for your practicality, to let us know you'll be back.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere. I'm a really good spender.
Because that, that is important to know, and that you stretched out. I didn't realize all that background, staff and employees and the cross training that takes place. Would you share that with us to be considered?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Barbara.
It looks to me like the General District Court is on page 118 in the budget departmental, but I don't see all these things in here. Are these things not included in the budget that's proposed?
The items that she's requesting funding for? Yes, those are requested but not funded.
It's under requested but not funded.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's not in the budget as it's proposed to us.
Currently right now, we don't have a financial plan for those, so council would have to add those in reconciliation and provide a revenue source for it, or offset.
If I can just speak on that for just a second, there are avenues to collect some of these funds, some of these revenues. We will continue to work with Emily Nelson and all of the budgeting staff, but there are some things written in the code for some of these e-summonses. We can collect additional funds if we sit down and earmark where they're going to go. That may help offset some of these things.
Okay, Worth.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. So just in general terms, that's about $200,000 extra is what I'm hearing and seeing.
That's roughly what they're asking for, is about $200,000, sir.
Okay, anything else? Thank you for coming, and it was very eye-opening, when we came and spoke to you all and saw that building is a very busy building, quite a bit. And it is a need, and, it just kind of shows that our city is aging, and a lot of our buildings are aging, our schools are aging. But once again, I think it's got to be a priority. And I think we can all agree, going forward, that, you do a critical service to the city of Virginia Beach. And, I tell you what, I think I can speak for everybody. It's on the radar.
I appreciate it.
You got it. Thank you.
Thank you all for your time.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, at this time, we'll be joined by the Health Commissioner for the Virginia Beach Health Department, Dr. Caitlin Padati. She'll come and give council an overview of the operating budget for the health department for fiscal year 26 and 25 and 26.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. City Manager. It's always a pleasure to be here with you all. All right. So I will go ahead and get started and give you an overview of our budget proposal. Really high level. Essentially, we're asking for the continuation of the services that we currently provide. So you're not going to see anything new or any major changes proposed here. The other thing I just would highlight for you all is I'm speaking about the city's portion of our public health budget, and of course, just keeping in mind that our public health department is a cooperative agreement between the state and the city. So this doesn't include all of public health, which is why you'll see 7 FTEs on the city side, which sounds small, but those are our dedicated city FTEs. And what you can see here is a pie chart that's breaking down our proposed budget. And you can see overwhelmingly that largest portion, as I mentioned, comes from that cooperative agreement match between the city, the locality, and the state around public health services. And then in addition to that, you can see what I'll speak a bit more about on the next slide, portions of funding that go to our Healthy Families program, which is our early childhood development home visiting program, dental services for kids, and our lab and senior services. So what you can see here in this table is essentially that same information, just provided for you in tabular form. And if I can call your attention to the big picture here, which is that essentially we're proposing continuation again of our current services. There is somewhat of a small increase overall related to the small annual increase from that cooperative or local match. But in general, we've requested continued funding for our Healthy Families program, which again, as I mentioned, is that early childhood development and preventive services program, our pediatric dental services, our laboratory services, and our senior screening services. That other expenses sort of line item that you see there, while it looks very different, really what we've done there is kind of pull out portions of things like IT costs or risk management costs that are sort of standard for departments across the city that used to be embedded within those programs. We just pulled them out into another line item as other expenses there. So while I don't have any major budget proposal changes for you, I did just want to take the opportunity to very briefly share a couple quick updates from the public health world for you. We continue to work together with Director Trimmer and others locally around a coordinated response to H5. We, of course, continue all of our good environmental health inspections for things like restaurants and pools and things like the She Crab Classic event that was just recently hosted. We also continue our public health laboratory services that are ready to provide local support for things like measles if it were needed. And then, of course, we continue to look towards developing our current and future public health workforce. And then lastly, just wanted to take the chance to call to your attention a couple of good upcoming events. One is that this marks Child Abuse Awareness Month. So together with many other departments across the city, public health recognizes the importance of prevention for child abuse. And you may see pinwheels planted out in gardens around our city buildings, and that's what this is acknowledging. We also have our Celebrating Children event that's hosted by GrowSmart that public health participates in and supports coming up at the end of the month. Again, a great opportunity for collaboration across the city in support of kids and their health and well-being. We also continue our back-to-school vaccinations, which feels a little funny to say at this time in the year, but it's been a great partnership between us and schools that we do on a rolling basis to catch up our Virginia Beach kids. And then lastly, we're looking forward to a public awareness event around syphilis, which has unfortunately been increasing nationwide in the state and locally, and we'll be participating in a local awareness campaign at the end of the month. And that concludes my remarks.
Okay, Cash and then Barbara.
Thank you for the presentation. I just want the community to know that this is a wonderful partnership between the state and the city. And I know that there is some fret about what's going on the federal level. here's a example of how Virginia Beach works well with the state. And so with the health department on getting information out about measles, right? That's important. And even still booster shots for COVID. And I think that this goes to show that this public health board is very important to our relationship with the city, as well as with the schools and the community. So I just want us to know that this is a partnership.
Great. Barbara?
You're in the budget on page 158. It is the aging in place. And this is a collaboration between the city's fire and EMS departments through a grant from the Center for Disease Control, but it's in your department. And about 2 weeks ago, we got notification from CDC that that grant had been canceled effective immediately. So what are y'all doing about it? And do you plan to try to continue it?
Yeah, we do plan to continue that. So we've been continuing that partnership, and right now we have some unspent funds in our cooperative budget that we're able to use to support that work. But longer term, we've been working really hard to create a more sustainable process for that work because we think it's really important. So you may recall, Councilwoman, maybe it was a year or so ago now, that some funds was provided to the Public Health Foundation that's been picking up that work. And so the idea is that together with fire and EMS, we intend to help sustain that. Again, recognizing that the grant that you referenced was provided during COVID. We completely understood that was never meant to be long-term funding. And in fact, part of the work we did with that grant was to create a more sustainable, longer-term plan. So, what I can say is, yes, unfortunately, that funding was rescinded early, but we had been working for a while on a longer-term plan. And right now, we do think we have a plan in place to continue that work, because we've seen that it's important and we think it's a great partnership with the city services.
So will we be seeing how that's going to be within this budget? So we'll still be able to tell what's going to happen and whether, I'm assuming you'll need some additional funding locally.
Councilmember Hanley, that's one of the things that's proposed to be funded by EMS billing is a continuation of that program. So one of the goals of EMS billing, if adopted by this council, is that it will help support the costs associated with the Aging in Place program. Probably if additional funds are needed, because we anticipate once they've spent down some of the foundation funds, there may be additional needs that are needed. If it's above and beyond what EMS billing can provide, Dr. Badawi will make an ask of City Council probably in the next budget process.
Thank you. I'll look for that.
Yeah, thank you for asking.
Josh?
Mr. Mayor, Dr. Badawi, thank you very much for your work and your presentation. Basically following up a little bit on what Councilmember Henley had said, the federal funding that I know is more programmatic in nature, we've seen it not just recently be impacted, but since the pandemic where we had that influx of funding as well. I noticed this really just talks about kind of state funding, and it doesn't necessarily give that bigger, broader picture of some of those initiatives and some of the other work you're engaged in. Would love to be, more read in on that as well. And I understand, it's a budget presentation. So, and then also your local school partnerships, do they include our Health Sciences Academy at Bayside High School? And if so, I'd love to be more read in on that too, if that's a possibility.
Yeah, and if it's okay, Mr. City Manager, perhaps what we can do is some follow-up on some of those items. But yes, our school partnership kind of includes schools across the board, really focused, as I mentioned, on catching kids up for vaccination. But there are other educational programs or opportunities that we're trying to expand or increase. And then your point about sort of broader services, you're absolutely right? So as I mentioned, between the state and the city, we come together to provide locally administered public health services. And I only shared a bit about what the city chooses to support on top of that, but there are many things, including restaurants inspections, pool permits, salon permits. We do immunizations for children. We do tuberculosis screening, STI screenings. We do some early pregnancy and postpartum home visiting. So we do have a range of services that I'd be happy to follow up with and talk about, and provide additional information as
I
needed.
appreciate that very much. Thank you very much.
Okay, anyone else? Amelia?
Yes, thank you again for your presentation. I'm glad to see, in the upcoming, these are crucial that you see on the national level about the vaccinations, the syphilis situation that's going on. I wanted to know more, as serving on the State Executive Council for Children's Services. How connected are we in Virginia Beach otherwise with that service?
I'm so sorry. Can you repeat the last part of that?
The State Executive Council for Children's Services.
Okay. More on the human services side, is that?
Okay, not so much from your end.
I think so, but let me do a little bit of follow-up between myself and Director Smith. I'm sure we can talk to you a little bit about how that partnership works, because you're right. If you think about health and human services just across the board on the governmental side, right? It's kind of interesting to follow it from the federal level where it's consolidated to the state level where it comes apart to the local level where it comes back together. So I'd be happy to provide some follow-up for you.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, anyone else? Dr. Padati, thank you so much. And your department is, in fact, a core of what government is, the services that we provide. And a lot of times, you do this work, and what is evident is the problems that we don't have, that we would have had it not been for your department. So I think there's an appreciation for that, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you all for the opportunity to be here.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, at this time we'll be joined by Police Chief Newdigate. He's going to come and give City Council an overview of the proposed 25-26 budget. And as part of his presentation, I've asked for him to comment on some of the recent increases in shootings that we've seen of late. So he'll have that towards the end of his presentation.
Welcome, Chief.
Greetings, Mayor and members of council. Just like to do a quick introduction. Brought the senior staff with me. We got Deputy Chief Jeff Wilkerson, Deputy Chief Sean Adams, Deputy Chief Billy Zelms, Deputy Chief Scott Witchendall, and of course, Lieutenant Brian Strauss with me. So talk budget first. No surprises that when you look at the pie chart that operations or patrol takes the largest share of our operating budget, followed by investigations. And what we're going to ask today are some support positions. We're not asking for any additional sworn positions, but some additional support staff to help us do what we need to do as the police department. So when we take a look at this one, we're looking at a total of 8.5 positions. 3 of those are for the red light camera expansion. And when it comes to the red light camera that I believe the council voted on, those funds will be reimbursed, so that will not be an additional cost to the city. The speed camera program, or for the additional cameras that are going on the school bus stop arm program, that is being increased, I believe, from 150 to 450 school buses. So we need the additional staff to help us process that for the schools. And then that will be reimbursed to the police department. So the police department is really only asking for 2 additional positions. And one is an IT technology manager, and one is some FOIA support staff. So over the last 3.5, 4+ years, this council has invested heavily in technology, tens of millions of dollars. And there is no doubt that that technology as a force multiplier was one of the reasons that we achieved such great results last year. Remember, presented to council, we had the lowest number of reported violent crimes in 2024 than we did in the previous 5 years. And technology is increasingly becoming that force multiplier for us. So historically, when we look at technology, we have put a policeman, and Councilman Hutchison, I'm sure it happens in the fire department, we thrust a sworn member into a role they're not really suited for. And that's what we've done with technology over the years. We've put a sworn lieutenant, sometimes a sworn captain over top of this. And, it takes them 18, 24 months to get up to speed to even know what they don't know. And what I'm asking for is a position that will sit over top of our technology unit, our real-time crime center, our analysis unit, so that we don't have a degradation in the use of these tools that you've invested so heavily in. And as technology, we're going to keep investing. It's becoming integrated in everything that we do. One of the things that we are looking at as a department, and we think it will benefit the PD, it will probably benefit the fire department, and I could see other public safety agencies. We are now looking into drones as a first responder, which allows us to pre-position drones in strategic locations throughout the city. We envision probably trying to start with the ocean front if we can get this up in operation, and those drones would be strategically placed. And as we move along, the FAA is no longer requiring that you have visual sight on your drones. You can get a waiver for the line of sight requirement. So say we have a certain call at the ocean front and a fight, shots fired, those drones can launch independent of human interaction, respond to that location, get over top, and start relaying live video to our real-time crime center without our cops even trying to get there. So that is just one of the technologies that we are researching right now. The other one is we are in a desperate need for FOIA office staff. From 22 to 24, FOIA requests increased 8%, accident reports up 20%, and we anticipate that this year alone for 2025, there will be almost 2,000 additional requests compared to last year. And something that we have to remember is that with the implementation of the BWCs, the mobile video recorders, and all the cars, we have to redact all those FOIA requests, and that is incredibly time intensive. And many times on these incidents, it's not one or two officers, it's dozens of officers that respond to these. So we have hundreds of hours of video. One thing that I do want to put on council's radar is House Bill 2723 that I believe it is paused right now, but that is another unfunded mandate from the state that will make us go back and seal certain felony and misdemeanor convictions. And I will tell council at this time, we do not have the staff currently as we're configured to comply with this requirement if it comes to fruition. So FOIA office workload, as you can see, between 23 and 24, it went up about 6%, and we anticipate that it's going to go up even more this year, and we are asking for one single FOIA position at this time. And I figured that this would come up. Just wanted to talk about VBPD staffing. We were due to present last week and got bumped off the calendar. Unfortunately, since then, I think we've had 4 additional retirements, so we're up to about 57. Our recruiting is staying consistent. Where we are struggling is with recruiting those lateral officers. We've seen a reduction in the number of individuals that are already certified officers, either in Hampton Roads or across the Commonwealth, and wanting to make that jump. But I don't think it's just us. Talking to our peer cities, everybody is starting to see that. There is just a finite number of individuals that want to do this job, and I think we've hit that saturation point. So it's been a little over, I think, 6 weeks since our tragedy, and we lost Chris and Cam. I just really wanted to take an opportunity to thank the council for all your support. The police department, I don't want to say we're still reeling, but we are definitely not out of the woods and trying to process what this means to us. But the support of this council and the support of this community was greatly appreciated. And I know that the men and women of the VBPD, thank you for everything that you did to help us remember Chris and Cam. And I know the manager asked me that we've had a very busy last 36 hours. We have had 6 individuals shot. I'm not going to call all 6 victims because we do believe that some of the individuals that were shot were engaged in felonious activity at the time of their shooting. So we know what the first incident was, a shots fired into a residence where we did have a male that was 17 years old that was struck by a projectile. He is in critical condition. This was followed up several hours later by a robbery. 2 individuals exchanged gunfire during that robbery. They were both critically wounded. We do believe that there is some connection between those first 2 incidents. And then that was followed up late last night by the third incident where we had 3 individuals that were struck by gunfire. Those 3 individuals were known to each other. They were together at some type of event when guns were brought into play along with alcohol, and we had 2 male victims and a female victim shot. So altogether, I think there's some incorrect information out there. 5 of these individuals were adults. 1 was a 17-year-old, so we do not have children or a large number of young adults that were involved in these offenses. And at this time, still very early in the investigations, so I don't want to talk too much about them because the detectives still have a lot of work to do. But we don't think that there are any outstanding suspects. We think that we have identified and we have in custody everyone that's involved in these 3 incidents. And I don't want to, these are individuals and some of them are victims, so I don't want to equate them just to numbers. But when we do look at the data up until yesterday, remember last year presented that we had some of the lowest shooting violence numbers that we have seen as a city in quite some time. We were down 53% compared to this time last year, compared to one of our best years on record. So even with this clustering, and I'll phrase it that way, we are not seeing an increase if we just look at the data, but we did have a clustering of offenses and activity over the last 36 hours. And with that being said, we're still down 31% compared to the number of shooting incidents that we had at this time last year. So I'll offer it up to any questions that
Any questions for the
council may have.
Barbara?
Planned to ask you about that because that was the news last night and it just didn't sound good for Virginia Beach. This shooting, this shooting, this shooting. And my question was going to be, where are these people getting these guns? And I mean, is that a problem? Are these illegally acquired guns or people have them legally? What's going on here?
I do not have the E-Trace results on all of them because many of these are less than 48 hours. I can speculate that in the area where 2 of these incidents occurred, and you may have seen that we had a rash of vehicles that were broken into a few days prior, almost 40 vehicles. Out of those 40 vehicles, 3 guns were taken. So the data holds true year over year that about 10% of all cars that are broken into in the city of Virginia Beach produce a gun into the community and ends up either being possessed or utilized by someone that should not possess them. So the vast majority of these guns are being introduced because people leave them in their cars and then their cars get broken into overnight, and that equates to hundreds of firearms into our community every year. And then we do recover them in many of our crimes, in our shootings, our robberies, and other incidents. And that's why we do our best to plead and engage the community. Please, you have a right to a firearm, but there also, with that right, should come some responsibility. And I would say that responsibility is to secure that firearm when it's not on your hip or not in your immediate possession so that it doesn't get stolen out of your vehicle.
Thank you. I think the responsibility is the importance to everybody, especially someone who's going to have a firearm. It really bothers me that so many people out there driving these cars have got a gun in their car what in the heck for? I mean, it worries me a little bit when we think of some of the things that sometimes happen with road rage.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, one thing leads to another. Maybe we need to have some feedback from our public on what they're thinking. If they feel that they have to always be armed, it's concerning to me.
And I don't think, council member, I don't think that's unique to Virginia Beach. I mean, that seems to be, we are no different in the number of guns that I believe are sold or carried. We can look at the number of CCW permits that we issue and we do the backgrounds for, and there are a large number of citizens of Virginia Beach that feel that they should exercise their right to possess and carry a firearm.
Hey, Stacy.
Thank you, Chief. Can you go to slide 5?
Just tell me where to stop,
No,
sir.
no, back, 5, the other way.
There it is. Yes, sir.
Yes. So on the red light camera contract increase, that's 770,000. That's just the cost of the contract. That's not a net number, including the revenues, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so revenues greatly or exceed the cost of the program.
But go ahead, Chief. You go. Go, Chief.
Manager, if you have it, I'll let you answer that one.
Yeah, for the spotlight, remember when we briefed City Council for the stoplight camera, it's projected to break even. But the speed cameras and the stop arm cameras are the ones that may possibly generate additional revenue beyond covering the costs associated with the program. That's the one that council's directed to fund it into a CIP directly for traffic enforcement. We're also, as Chief Judge Monego mentioned, we're also monitoring the impacts it's going to have on the courts. We do suspect probably next budget cycle, there's going to be a need to assist over there as well in terms of additional support staff. But we don't anticipate that the funds will likely get realized in the city treasury until sometime later in fiscal year 26, right? So probably like January, February timeframe.
I just wanted to clarify that. And then on the speed camera program for where school zones, there's no agreement between the school system and the city, correct?
So I'll speak on this, and Dana and Kevin could correct me if I'm wrong. I think probably like 2017, 2018, City Council adopted an ordinance authorizing the schools to implement that program, and the revenue associated with that program goes to the schools.
Okay, Josh and Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, thank you, and to the leadership team you have in the seats there, and to everybody for the tremendous job you do. I think just given our track record and history as being a safe city, among the safest in the nation, we have a lot of expectations out of that as a community, and I think part of those expectations involve us thinking that you can be everywhere all the time. And I know you all try to be very much. But with the requests you've made here with IT solutions and the investments that you've made in camera technology, and of course the FOIA and public informational interest that is associated with all this, I think that all of this makes perfect sense, and it helps you be force multipliers for yourselves, helps you be everywhere. And I know all of us receive phone calls about safety, particularly traffic safety in neighborhoods, and this is one of those things where y'all have heard the public, y'all have heard us, and you're trying your very, very best to successfully deliver on those expectations. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, Mark.
Thank you, Mayor Dyer. Chief Nunegate, thank you for the presentation. But really, thank you and the department, all the officers, for what you continue to do each and every day and each and every year to keep our cities safe. And I really appreciate your continued emphasis on technology. And if you could speak in a minute about your success with investigations. But first, I notice you do not project any more sworn officers in the budget. Is that correct? And the reason why?
At this point in time, it would be premature for me to ask for those additional staff. You know, many of you and I have had those conversations about where I see the department going in the next few years. I definitely believe that there is a need for additional staff. There is a need for us to be able to staff our resort area around the clock. We know that no longer is that really an April through October event season for us. We are having many events, even in January or February. We're having parking and congestion issues, as you know. And historically, what we do is come April, end of April, early May, is we pull staff from the outlying precincts, our school resource officers, to help us fully staff what we need to do for the 14 million visitors that we open our doors to every year. At some point, that's going to hit a breaking point, and we have to have significant personnel down there to manage that year round. But I can't come to this council and say, I need additional staff when I can't fill the vacancies that we have. So the goal is, let me fill these vacancies, and I know the team is working very diligently to try to get us to the 800 authorized complement. And then I guarantee you, if we can get there, the very next time I appear in front of this body, I'll be making a compelling, very comprehensive argument for additional staffing that I do think that we need.
Okay, Barbara?
One of our major projects out there, of course, is the Law Enforcement Training Academy. And I feel very strongly that that is something we need to make sure we're working toward, because having the proper training and intensity of training that is necessary and desirable is certainly important. And I know that's going to take a while for us to happen. How are you working on that? And I mean, I know we see the estimate of 82 million or something for the structure and so forth. Are we moving along, and what are we thinking of? Are we thinking to include something about that in this budget?
And so, Councilmember Henley, to your point, there's a projected $9 million associated with the meals tax, amount of money that the meals tax generates. It's about $9 million, right? Okay. And there's about $9 million projected for the cost of the design. So there's $9 million in the first year of the CIP, Kevin, correct? Right, to cover the cost of design. So if council approves that come July 1, Public Works and the Police Department and the Sheriff's Department can put out a RFP to secure a design professional to work with them for designing the new Law Enforcement Training Academy. Then after that, the revenue associated with the meals tax can be used to cover the debt service. Roughly a $80 to a $90 million building generates about $9 million per year in debt service costs. So that'll cover the costs associated with the debt of bringing the building to fruition if council approves it.
Is that one of the major projects that we're looking at as a part of the meal tax increase?
Councilmember Henley, that's correct. Yep, that's one of the major ones that's tied specifically to the major projects fund.
And I think the design of these projects was a part of that, to be done with the money generated from that this year. I think something I saw recently, but I wasn't sure that LEDA was included in that as the design, but
Yes, ma'am.
it's a part of the major projects that we're looking toward with
Correct.
this money.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, anybody, Amelia?
Thank you, Chief Newdigate. And I'm pleased to see that we continue to be leaders in coming up with special things like not only first responder, like you mentioned about the drones,
Yes, ma'am.
having that, and even prior to that, that entire screen where we have the first watch, that we were one of the first cities bringing these into this area. So it's good to see that you continue to be proactive on bringing the best things to help. And in regards to Council Member Henley, I recently saw an ad, I hope it's national, where they're showing the importance of where you leave your guns. And they have a child having to open that drawer and hold it in his hand, and it stops. And I think that may help for people to really think the importance of where you put your guns.
Thank you, council member. And I know that we have partnered with many of our gun retail manufacturers. And, I know Freedom comes to mind, that the times that I've been in there, and there's still literature with the department and the establishments encouraging safe gun ownership and storage and what that looks like. And that's something that we'll continue to promote.
Thank you.
Okay, Michael and Hush.
Thank you, Chief. First thing I want to do is associate myself with Councilmember Henley's comments about LEDA and affirm my support for moving expeditiously to create a new training academy for law enforcement professionals, which I've shared with you previously. So in this budget process, I just want to make sure that I'm continue to be on record as strongly supportive of that. And Chief, I do have one question, but a comment before that. I had the chance last week to have two really nice engagements with divisions that are part of your department that I think are sometimes under celebrated or appreciated or just maybe not known by the public for the positive impact that they provide our community. The first is the Animal Services Division.
Yes, sir.
A lot of people may not know that that division does fall within the police department of Virginia Beach, and they just do an outstanding job of providing services not only to residents but to domesticated and wild animals in Virginia Beach. And I really applaud their efforts. And the mayor often talks about Virginia Beach being the most caring city in the country, which we have been recognized as. And I think part of that extends not only to the care that we provide to the people who live here, but also to the other creatures that live here. And that includes the men and women who work for you in that division. And they really put their hearts and soul into their work, and I applaud them. The other comment that I would make is about the graduation of the Mounted Patrol Division that the mayor and I had the privilege to attend last week. And that also included the celebration of the 40th anniversary of the Mounted Patrol Division. And that's an incredible division because they not only provide protection and safety, such as at the resort and during times of unrest, but they're also there for ceremonial occasions and community engagement occasions. People love to see those horses at community festivals and events, and I think it does build trust, respect, understanding in the community. So they do really incredible work. We've had that division for 40 years, and I don't think every city has a Mounted Patrol Division. Could you speak on that just a little bit?
Absolutely. First, if I can speak to the Animal Services Bureau, thank you for acknowledging them, because I think many do forget that they do work as partners with the police department, and they are a very dedicated team. We have a lot of animals that come into our possession, and we do our best to make sure that they are all treated humanely and that we try to get positive outcomes. And I know that they are very attached. And thank you for acknowledging their work. And thank you to the mayor for attending the graduation. It was the 40th anniversary. We have 5 newly trained mounted officers, so we can get back to our full complement of 8 plus auxiliaries. And Councilmember, you hit it right on the head. We are very lucky as a police department. We are very lucky as a city of our size to still have a mounted patrol. We know that many cities did away with their mounted patrol during the economic downturn in 2008, 2009, and they just can't afford to bring them back. So the fact that this council, this city, this community stayed the course, and we did not do away with mounted, and we still have them because they are a great community relationship builder. And then for the issues that we do have at the oceanfront, they allow us to manage those crowds in ways that we can't do on bike, on foot patrol. And I thank you all for supporting our mounted patrol, because they are an incredible part of this police department, and they do represent us very well.
Thank you. I just have one more comment and then one more question. It's just amazing because the horses, 2 comments really about the horses. I've seen them in action down there, and people, first of all, they're de-escalating because sometimes people are kind of afraid of the horse. I'm one of them. They're big. You don't want them to step on your foot or whatever. So you get out of the way when the horse trots up. And so that's one thing. And so they protect the people that are fighting, or if there's a crowd situation, it's just de-escalating because it's just you introduce a horse into that mix and it changes the whole equation. And I've seen it just just completely calm down when that horse comes. It's really amazing. The other thing that I saw during the graduation was that this horses, they don't normally like to get near each other. But the way the officers were making the horses, the direction that the way they were handling them, they've been really trained. And not only the riders, the officers, but the horses that are officers are really good. It's really amazing. I learned a lot of that. They also don't step in their own mess either, which is something I can't be said in this room always.
Especially during lunchtime.
Yeah.
That was good, Michael. That was good. I got to applaud that. That was
They
excellent.
never do.
That was good, buddy.
I have one more question.
Yes, sir.
Talking about technology, AI.
Yes, sir.
AI I'm interested in AI a little bit, and it's increasingly becoming more pervasive through society, and people are using it. How is AI being used in law enforcement applications and police applications? And then as we're investing in technology, what should we be thinking about or preparing to invest in the future? I mean, I could think of drones in certain areas. We have ShotSpotter, but are drones being used? And can AI identify crime and predict crime before it happens? Like, what's the future for AI in terms of your work?
There are a number of things that are occurring. There are some things that we're hearing about, and I think we're taking a very cautious approach to all of that. We don't know what the future of AI holds, but we know currently, Axon is kind of one of the big players, and one of the things that we are in a testing phase now in terms of AI is what they call Axon Draft. So every officer has a body-worn camera. They go out on patrol. You had your car broken into, and I'm taking your report, and Mr. Bellucci, tell me what happened, what was taken. The body-worn camera is capturing our entire narrative and dialogue. And historically, at the end of the day, or I go back to my car, now I have to enter that into my National Incident-Based Reporting System, and I have to type the narrative of what occurred. Well, Axon Draft is capturing that. I hit a button, and it will auto-populate the draft narrative into a form, and all the officer has to do is make any modifications, review it for accuracy, and then certify that it's an accurate representation of the conversation that you and I just had. So we are in a testing phase with that. I know that there are other police departments that have been testing it for a while, and they're seeing some initial quantitative results of saving up to 30 minutes per report run. So instead of spending 25 or 30 minutes typing that draft, and I will tell you that the results that we're seeing are very positive because some of our folks are not the best at composing narratives. So we're getting a very clean, very concise product. One of the new body cams also, I think it's going to be a game changer for us, is we have very diverse cultures, and we run into folks that speak languages other than English. Is the new body-worn cameras not only can, say I'm talking to an individual that speaks Spanish, and I'm not a Spanish speaker, but the body-worn camera is capturing all that now, and what is being relayed to me, the BWC will capture and analyze it and bring it back to me over the BWC in English so that we can have almost that instantaneous conversation with me being a non-Hispanic speaker and a Hispanic-speaking individual. So there are a number of AI initiatives that are already showing great promise. And I think that the
Those all
future is...
upgrades? Are they all upgrades?
Of course they are. Yes, sir. Yes, they are. So
That's why I'm asking. I mean, we have to prepare continue to be on the leading edge. I mean, those are some of what you just, and I'm sure, I mean, the options are limitless in terms of what this emerging technology can provide, and sure, things we can't even imagine today.
yes, sir.
And I think as we think about how we promote safety in neighborhoods and community, we've got to prepare for the possibility that we're going to have to be making these upgrades like that, like what you mentioned, or others, to be on the leading edge of utilizing technology, which I know you to be.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hey, Hutch?
Just real quick, and it's kind of a lot of what Councilman Berlucci was talking about. First, I'll hit the animal control and Captain Fox and her group. I'm the co-liaison with Councilman Berlucci, and I can't say any more than what y'all have already said. They're kind of the unsung heroes on another level, and just even like tagging the dogs, so that when the dogs do get away, that they're able to the animal control, microchip, and then the vets that fill in for the time to do that, to go out into the neighborhoods where we have the most. I mean, it's just I like that that's what we're doing with our city. You know what I mean? We're trying to keep them. They're family pets 90% of the time. Somebody leaves a gate open, it's a whole lot better to get them right back to their family. If it becomes a problem, a nuisance, then we got to do something about it. But just a lot of the stuff they're doing is just smart, and I really appreciate it from them. So just that for as well. The other thing is, would you pull up the slide with the crime spotter, when you're in the lab there? Yep, there we go. So I don't know, and maybe I'm naive. If you haven't been there yet and gotten the tour, this kind of stuff interests me a lot. Kind of like we were talking about AI and everything else. It's just filling in for this. But this is a magnificent room. Rooms. It's more than one room, and everything that's going on there is well worth for us to have a good understanding, so that when we are talking about it to our constituents, as well as like we're talking about drones and everything else, I think this all kind of ties in. It's good for us to know what you're accomplishing there and what the purpose of it is and how it's helping us keep us safe. I would encourage, if you haven't, to make an appointment and go down and get it. It takes about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, felt like, but it was very good for me to go, and I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Hey, Barbara?
Just as a comment, this real-time crime center is one of the features that we were able to incorporate into the building too, when it was dedicated to the police department. And I'm so glad that we were able to do that. And I think it's a great testament to what we all have learned. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you,
Hey,
Councilmember.
anybody else? Well, Chief, I think the highlight of what you're saying is our success creates challenges. And as we go to a year-round situation at the oceanfront, it's going to create some logistical needs in a lot of areas in city government. But that being said, I think once again, I concur that, getting a new leader for you sooner rather than later. But once again, I think if we're going to have consider a slight tax in the meals tax, a dedicated funding source to make sure that not only what you need, your needs are not going to go beyond a new training academy. It's keeping up with the technology. I can imagine what the software costs for that, for upgrades and things of that nature. But Virginia Beach is ahead of the curve, and I think we got to make sure it stays that way.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, at this time we'll be joined by Fire Chief Ken Kravitz. He's going to come and give City Council overview of the proposed 25 and 2026 fiscal year fire department budget.
Welcome, Ken.
Mr. Mayor, council members, Mr. Haney, Mr. Stiles, thanks for having me today. I appreciate it. I'm joined with my budget director, Jen Whitley, count clerk, Ellen Keck, and then Lori Skidda, my executive assistant, a couple of members of my staff there representing the local. So before I get too deep, I'll be quick because I know you have other people waiting behind me, and then I want to just roll through so we have time for questions and answers. But I want to thank the budget director and deputy director and our budget analyst, Josh, for really addressing in the manager's proposed budget the challenges that were most damaging to the fire department right now. And that's our people, maintaining our people, our staffing challenges that we've had. And we worked with the Office of Performance and Ability to get some studies done to talk about our staffing. And the council directed us to get some staffing last year. This budget also adds some additional staffing. And then our fire apparatus, which is one of the ones that we're really seeing some struggle. So I just want to say thank you for all the hard work to Mr. Manager putting this budget together and addressing the challenges that were focused on the fire department. So I'll roll through the slides pretty quick. This 621 FTEs is our staffing. It's up 30 members in this proposed budget, and that's the second half of the 60 that was proposed last year. Our budget in the gray area is fire suppression, I'm sorry. It is the predominant driver of our budget, and we call that fire operations, but it's really our fire suppression crews, the people who work the shift work, 56-hour work schedules. That's the largest chunk of our budget. This is the breakdown by divisions. You'll see the only changes is the net 30 increase in the FT counts. Everything else is just how it's broken down. And this doesn't exactly line with our org chart, but it is the way the funding is separated out. So the major changes for our budget this year that are in this proposal: 30 new firefighters. That is to help with our staffing challenges. When we graduated the 50 recruits recently, we've seen an 80% reduction in our overtime, so we're grateful for that. This is the second half to really help with the staffing challenges, and we think that this should balance out the forced overtime and the mandatory overtime and bring us to a reasonable level. There's also 110 Esri mobile licenses in there. That'll help us with crisis response and data collection. The new command and controls tools, I was talking with the manager this morning about on our fire incidents, we use whiteboards and grease markers to document the activity on a fire scene. And we have our fire officers take pictures of them every day so we can document what happened on that scene, who did what, and how is the command laid out for quality control, training purposes, and also accountability and historical records. And then the last thing is we're converting 2 part-time inspector positions to one of our life safety specialist positions. You know, preventing the problem in the first place is the biggest investment we can make. So we're taking 2 positions that we were having a really hard time filling and converting them to another educator to focus on the school programs, the senior programs that will really give us more benefit to prevent the emergency in the first place. So the other initiatives that we have under the way, we're still working. In September, you approved us to move forward with our enhanced physicals. We're still working through the contract language on that. Hopefully we can get it done. The year-end budget process is getting concerning to me, so I am concerned about us making sure we can get that before this year's fiscal closes. But we're still working through getting the enhanced physicals. I thank the council's support for helping us move that forward. This budget puts some money in our CIP. It's the year-end revision money to help balance out the apparatus needs. So we worked with Fleet to identify what vehicles needed to be replaced. I am a little bit concerned about using year-end money versus, finding the right mark for the CIP to be funded going forward. And it is a concern because I do appreciate all the money that we're getting to help stabilize the fleet. But long-term, I think there's still going to be challenges there, and we definitely need to do some thought exercises into how we can increase that long-term. Our hiring process is open. If anybody's interested in being a firefighter, it's open through the end of the month. We're really excited. So far, we have about 500 applicants, and we've been very aggressive on our advertising, and we hope to have another great recruit class. The recruits that we graduate, I mentioned the 50 was the largest class that we've had, and we're really excited about bringing those people on board, getting them trained, and stabilizing everything. We're working to figure out ways to get our return to work process a little bit faster. We average about 42 people a year for about 100 days out on limited duty because of injuries and illnesses. So we want to figure out how we can accelerate that model and get people back to work sooner. That will also help with our staffing and overtime challenges. And obviously, we're working with monitoring the federal changes in the government for funding. The FEMA program, obviously, it's still funded. It's still funded fully right now. We haven't had any trouble getting the funding for the grants, but it was turned off for a minute and then turned back on. So we're just tracking what's happening with that. And then our AFG and SAFER grants, which is where we get money for response and SAFER programs and staffing. Those grants are kind of on hold right now. A lot of that goes through the National Fire Academy, which was closed down, but now it's starting to open back up. So we're just monitoring all those different programs on the federal level. So that's all the items that I had. Once again, thank you for all the work that was to put this budget before you. I think it does address a lot of our concerns, and I'll be prepared to answer any questions.
Dash.
Chief, I want to thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
I had the opportunity to visit Station 19.
Yes, sir.
And I'll tell you something. When we talk about the training and equipping of the fire department and the professionals who we pay to run into fire, right, is amazing to me. We were just sitting there at the table, and I was having a conversation with the crew, and there comes a call through the speakers. So as I begin to understand, they're always ready to go. They can be having coffee, a call comes in, they're ready to go. And I just want the public to know that as I sat there and thought about the mental preparation that they have to be trained up to, this is not just a regular, you come to your 9-to-5 job and you're working, just doing a structured job. This is sometimes they can be doing things to rest and they have to snap into motion. So I think the consideration of us really paying attention to what they're asking in the budget needs to be paid attention to, only because we want them to stay with us. We want to keep professional firefighters. We want to have those who are elders to train the youth who are coming in. And so I just want to say I appreciate Station 19. I know that, sorry, Mayor, District 7, I appreciate, because I say it a lot. But the community comes and they drop off food and pastries, and sometimes the kids would just come and hang out. So you're not just firefighters, but you're a part of the community. And so thank you for giving me that exposure. I even learned a word, apparatus.
Yeah.
Right? I was like, what's that? Fire truck. Okay, all right. Anyway.
Happy that you learned that.
Yeah, right.
It was perfect because you showed up and we had the ambulance crew, the engine company, and the battalion chief there, and myself. And then the ambulance got a call. Then the engine got a call. Then the battalion got a call. So we ended up just you and I sitting there at the end, like, everybody's gone. So yeah, it was great though. We'd appreciate visiting, and I invite you all to visit your firehouses. We really do want to be part of the community and show off what we do. So
thank you.
Hey, Barbara.
Well, I want to echo what you said at first about the job that our budget staff has done in including all of these things that we had heard that you were in need of, including 2 mechanic positions to make sure that your
yes, ma'am.
vehicles are repaired and the new ones are put into place in the way. So they've done a masterful job of hitting all of these parts that you all had been telling us about. And of course, this ability to work with the firefighter health issues and the cancer screening that you're now able to do. You've really made a lot of progress in a few years, and I compliment you on and the others before you who have really brought the fire department to us with its needs, and therefore we've been able to see that these things are met. You mentioned this monitoring the changes to the FEMA proposed network, and I was kind of surprised here to know that there are only 28 national FEMA search and rescue task forces, and
Yes,
we
ma'am.
have one of them. I certainly thought there were more than
We
that.
have one of the best ones.
Pardon?
The best one.
Yeah,
The best
we're-
one.
We're at the top of that
Yeah.
28.
And that's a part of our fire training center and what the fire training has been able to do for us. But having that FEMA technician team really gives us the ability to have better trained people. And so it's a great part of what we have. I'm just surprised to know that there are only 28 of them nationally. And I certainly hope that there's not any further movement about getting rid of this program, because it's what these people do is amazing. Talk about leaving at a moment's notice. They're out of here and someplace else in the United States doing something to help another community.
Yes, ma'am.
So our folks are really, really good at what you do.
It's a great asset for the fire department because we staff it regionally and we staff it with firefighters, mostly firefighters. There are also some doctors and engineers and things like that support the team, but mostly it's firefighters. And the training that they get enhances our delivery on the street every day. And then when we go out into a community, right now, like Mitchell County, where we were for Helene, they're actually just sent a contingent to visit with the members of our task force because they developed that much of a relationship when they were there. It's just an amazing asset that we have. It ups our ability to serve this community, and it gives us the opportunity to serve the nation. And we're so proud of the team, really are. So
Y'all do a great job.
thank you.
And we'll take the #1 designation.
Okay, let's go with Worth and Amelia.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief Privates. And I just want to thank you for taking me through the Fire Training Academy on Bird Neck Road on a very hot day last fall. And I saw folks from all around the state being trained in very dangerous situations. And I think that is a real asset to our city. A lot of folks don't know about right here on Bird Neck Road. And that's good. And I think we should. The real-time crime lab that Chief Newdigate just spoke about, that's top and best in class. And the Law Enforcement Training Academy should be, and I'm glad it's support around the table for that. So thank you for that and what you do for the city there. My question to you is we've gotten some emails from citizens about flex time holidays and how they're counted. And is it 12 days? Is it 24? And can you speak to that and how that is a part of your budget or is not a part of your budget?
Yes, sir. In the manager's proposed budget, they're talking about taking away the flexible holidays, which we currently get as a 24-hour benefit. The employees get 3 of them, and go into the state holiday system, which would eliminate those flexible holidays. So they're essentially right now we get a 24-hour, the employees get to choose 3 days off, 24-hour work periods. If you go to the holidays, they'd get holiday pay for the hours that they work, and then the employees that aren't working get a distribution of those hours as well. So currently, we're the only workers that don't get the full shift for a holiday. So our employees work 08. On a holiday, they would work 08 in the morning to midnight because that's the part of the holiday that they actually, so that's 16 hours. And there's been debate about should a holiday for the fire department be equivalent of the work period, which is 24 hours, or should it be the amount of hours they work on the holiday? I talked to Director Copen and Max Ganano about this specifically. The move that labor is supporting is to try and get to a designation of 16 hours for those holidays so that it would be equivalent to the hours that they were actually working on the holiday.
Okay, Amelia?
Can you
Yep,
address that?
anybody?
Wait,
City manager.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's something that's been communicated to the city council. If city council wants to take that up, that could be something that we could address as part of reconciliation. We would need to identify an offset. The additional increase would be around 600 to 700,000. So if council wants us to move in that direction, we would need to have that conversation of reconciliation. But I anticipate that it's likely going to be something that council is going to explore. So we had the staff look to get a sense of what it will mean from a budgetary.
I could just add to that.
Sure.
Just to want to be clear though, is that like right now, and it's warranted, I don't know if any of them are still here, but PD, if you work a 10-hour shift, you get 10 hours. If you work 12, EMS is the same way. The fire department is the one that routinely, and it's just over history, it's been that way, and nobody can really explain exactly why it was that way. At least for the hours that are the overtime, you should get paid the same as the rest of the city is what the belief has been since we've probably 2 chiefs before me, but we were not able to make that happen. And that's what Chief Privates, am I saying? Kenny does better explaining this than I do, but is that?
Yes, sir. That's the equivalent. The discussion about the hours worked and the shift period has always been a debate within our organization and how they get to it used to be 11.2 and we got to a 24-hour flex, and then now the flexes are going away. So it's been a consternation piece in our organization for a long time.
Okay, Amelia and John.
Well, thank you so much. As District 7 is mentioning, we got the Engine 22.
Yes,
Remember?
Yes, ma'am.
We're supposed to do the ribbon cutting. And even before the ribbon cutting, they were called on that same day, and some of them had to go. So that's how important, and we appreciate the work you do and going nationally with FEMA and so forth. What I wanted to do, at least For those who are here, if you stand as well, we want to give you a round of applause for representing our city well.
Both part of the
Thank you.
USAR team as well.
Oh, and you too.
But those two are both still, or they're integral part of our USAR team as well. So,
Thank you.
Hey, Josh?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Chief Privates. You know, I was really just, you know, we all come to work and we do our jobs, you know, and you've got, and your force have a tremendously different kind of job. You do it in different ways at different hours of the day and night than many others. And same can be said with police and our public safety community generally. Also our public works and utilities folks, I mean, who are expected to get up in the middle of the night and fix down power line and you know, or navigate street, you know, movements in you know, in the face of construction projects and such. So, you know, as we look at these different ways of counting time off, and I know the fire department is unique in many respects, but I also hope that we're considering the folks that all come to work different ways at different hours of the day and night.
Hey, anybody else?
yeah, just real quick, I wanted to, I feel like sometimes it is, I try to help clarify things so that we all have a little better understanding. And Councilman Green, you brought up a good point that I think that we should acknowledge, and maybe most know about it, but I kind of doubt it, is when you talked about being like ever ready, you know what I mean, and paying attention, and that works for our police, our fire, EMS, sheriffs, E911. It bleeds over into a stressful part after years of having that happen. I jokingly say, my wife says it to me all the time, you're no longer in that role. You can stop worrying about what's going to happen next. But it's true. You can't just turn that on and off so easy. You know, when you get off, you still feel like you're always looking for that next hammer to fall. You know, I know, you know, you notice our police, they were all sitting on the back row. You know what I mean? It's just, they can't help it. That's what they're doing. They're always prepared for what's going to go down. The same thing happens for us sitting in the station. They're talking to you just like we're talking when the bell goes off, or if it starts talking, we're listening to that more than we're listening to what you have to say. You know what I mean? Because it might be at the next district over, but then we're going to have to, we might have to respond to it. We might have to help them. We might have to take the next call, especially when we're talking 18 and 19 in y'all's two districts. You know, there's lots of back and forth up and down Lynn Haven Parkway. So it's that ever ready, and it's for all of public safety. I really do mean that after a time that can take a toll on you for always kind of being in the ever ready on position, you know, and it takes a while to get that off. So the mental health aspect that Chief Privates is talking about, and also, you know, a fair wage is part of why I've always kind of pushed for that. But I appreciate y'all giving me that little bit of second there to explain that. Thanks.
Okay, Barbara.
Sorry to keep going back to this, but the bottom thing up there about initiatives underway, is there anything that we might need to do as a council, or that we should do to let our federal delegation know how important this is to us? Because I think having FEMA too is extremely important to us. And I'm not sure that they appreciate the level of what they do, and just giving them some information about how we would certainly want them to.
Yes, I don't know
support
what
it.
the council can do. I leave that for you guys. But we certainly are in conversations with Congresswoman Keegan's office. And matter of fact, she just signed on to a letter of a dear colleague. It's called a Dear Colleague letter, asking for support for the USAR system. So I know that she is certainly aware of the challenges, and she has been very supportive. We brought her out to the training site as well. And she actually got her hands on with some of the tools and was, excuse me, looking to do it again. So we are certainly getting support on the House side. On the Senate side, we've informed them, but there is no activity in the Senate right now for either Warner or Kane to engage in, but they are certainly aware of the importance of the two task forces in the Commonwealth, and how important it is for the Nationals response model. So
Long-term advocates for us.
yes, they have certainly both been advocates for us, and I just don't know what's happening on the Senate side. I just know there's a Dear Colleague letter circulating on the House side right now to support the funding for it.
Okay, well, anything we need to do, let us
Yeah,
know.
and I don't know if that's something that the council, I leave that to you, if you wanted to draft some kind of message or, I don't know. That's not my purview. Yeah.
Yep. Mr. Mayor, we're not seeing any demonstrable steps yet. They're like all administrations, this administration in particular is looking at all federal services with a fine-tooth comb. But as it relates to FEMA, we haven't seen any demonstrable steps yet to change it. They are talking about different ideas and moving the different model of how FEMA operates, but nothing's poured in concrete yet. You know, we do have our federal lobbyists and the different associations like the major city fire chiefs, and also our department is reaching out to our delegation and reaching out to FEMA, you know, asking for input and allowing us to advise as they make their decisions of where they want to go. Should we see something that adversely impacts the city, we'll definitely reach out to city council and seek your approval on how you want us to respond to it.
They're thinking we need to do.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? You know, Chief Pravis, I want to thank you for everything you do. Being a graduate of both the Citizens Police and Fire Academy, I have an appreciation, but you know, I would encourage everybody, if you get a chance, go to a graduation of the Police Academy or the Fire Academy and, you know, just see their, you know, the graduates and welcome them. But they also show videos about the training. And I'll tell you what, you know, back in the day, I had the Paris Island special, but I'll tell you what you folks go through in terms of rigor and what goes on, it's amazing. You know, the things that they perform at, you know, I'll just be specific now, you know, the Fire Academy. I mean, just, it's incredible what you do. And, you know, the one thing that, you know, I've come to appreciate over the years is that you know, when you get a call, you never know what is at the end of the call. And you got to be ready for so many things that you never know the unexpected when you get there. And, you know, and then I've also, you know, experienced where police and fire, they've been on some, you know, tragic accidents and things of that nature. And I think that goes what Hutch talks about, you know, what their eyes see when they get to certain calls and what they take with them. So, but once again, you know, it's with gratitude that we say thank you.
Thank you. And I appreciate the support of the council and the manager. Thank you for everything.
Okay, appreciate it, Kenny.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, at this time we'll be joined by our Public Utilities Department, in particular Bob Montague, Public Utilities Director. He's going to give City Council an overview of the Public Utilities fiscal year 25 and 26 operating budget.
Welcome, Bob.
Oh, and also, sorry, Public Utilities would also be talking about the CIP budget as well, right?
That's right.
Yep, so the presentation will be both their operating and their CIP budget, so apologies.
Mayor Dyer, members of council, it's a pleasure to be here today. We'll get right into it and try and make up some time for you. Department of Public Utilities has 420 positions. We're organized across 4 different divisions, including engineering, business, operations, and technical services. Our operating budget, the proposed operating budget for FY26 is $158.4 million. Here's a look at our revenue categories. Of that $158.4 million in budgeted revenues, you'll note that 93% of those revenues come from our monthly charges to our customers for water and sewer. So we're an enterprise fund, completely self-supported, and you see those large chunks of that pie there. Those represent the normal water and sewer charges, which make up the backbone of our revenues. We're currently operating under a 5-year rate increase schedule that was approved a couple of years ago. We're in year 2 of that 5-year schedule. I will note that utilities operate where we do cost of service studies to determine what our longer term rate or revenue requirements are. And so rates are calculated and established long before we know what the costs are going to be. We have seen significant inflation
since our last cost of service study, and we're really not keeping up with what our capital needs are and the investment that we need to make. But we are living within this rate schedule for now. But for foreshadowing, I think when we're done with this rate schedule, because we're not growing in terms of demand, we're likely going to be coming back with a recommendation for additional rate increases to support where our capital program needs to be. Here's a line item view of budgeted revenues. This represents a 5.9% increase over last year. And this is coming again, the increase in revenue is coming from our rate increase. And we're also doing a little bit better on interest income. So we're projecting to make a little bit of money there. Here's a categorized look at our expenditures. Our expenditures tend to be pretty similar in terms of how they're grouped year after year. If you look at this pie chart, it includes what we call the big four. Our big four categories include our Norfolk services contract. They treat our water. We also have a sales agreement with them where we purchase surplus water. That alone accounts for 25% of our operating budget. Personnel comes in next at 24%. Our operating expenses are 21%, and debt service, when you include pay-as-you-go funding, which supports how we fund our CIP, that accounts for 20%. So a lot of our costs are really fixed. Here's a more detailed summary of budgeted expenditures. I'll draw your attention to a couple of the more significant changes, which include the increased pay-as-you-go funding for our CIP that I was mentioning. This increase is really related to a program that I'll talk a little bit more about in a couple of minutes that's geared towards installing radio read meters. We've got an aging meter inventory that we need to address. It's the age has been exacerbated by supply chain issues with the pandemic. We need to put some more money towards this, and in part, you've got to put more money in it in our line of business to get a place in the production line, because if you're ordering small amounts of meters, you're just waiting an inordinate amount of time to get them. The second item I'll point out is a $2.3 million increase for the Norfolk Services contract, and this is just related to inflation and the operating cost of running a treatment plant. So most of these costs are tied up in chemicals and things like sludge removal. Here we see a comparative water and sewer collection costs. These are calculated as the average residential cost in the region. You can see Virginia Beach is coming in number 2, so we're still very competitive with respect to service providers within the Hampton Roads region, and our utility takes great pride in continuing to be very competitive and offering our customers excellent services at what can be construed as a pretty good value in our region. Finally, this slide shows our schedule for fee increases for 5/8 and 1-inch meters. These are a schedule of charges that are assessed to customers who are impacted by the city's mandatory connection ordinance. So if you have water and sewer running past your property, you are required by city ordinance to connect. The vast majority of customers who front the public water and sewer systems are already connected. But we have to update these charges periodically to ensure for those occasions where we do come across a property that for whatever reason has yet to connect, that we're appropriately recovering our costs. So challenges for FY26 and beyond. As I mentioned, there's minimal growth in terms of accounts, and water demand is actually trending downwards, and that's really geared towards the use of water efficient appliances and plumbing fixtures. Every time a house has an older washing machine that conks out, or a dishwasher that conks out, the one that's replacing it uses much less water. And it's a good thing, because trying to create new water resources, as we learned with the pursuit of the Lake Gaston Pipeline project, are very, very expensive. But the business side of the equation, it's not quite as good, because you do want to see some growth with your demand. The Norfolk contract, like I mentioned before, continues to be a big part. It's a fixed cost of what we do. It's 25% of our budget before we think about any other expenditure, and so that will continue to be a challenge for us. Increasing operating costs, like I mentioned, inflation is hitting everyone. We're in the business of concrete and steel, and so a lot of our capital projects are coming in significantly higher than engineers' estimates, and we're going to be having to work in the outer years to up the amount that we're investing into our system to address aging infrastructure. So I wanted to mention some initiatives that are underway or soon to be underway. I had mentioned this water meter replacement program. We are going to be installing radio read meters, and starting with our older meters, where we're having them age out. This will enable us to, using a vehicle, just to simply drive by a neighborhood and pick up all of the readings in a neighborhood. So it makes gathering of the meter readings much, much more efficient, and helps us to stay more consistent with a 30-day billing period as well. We're also getting ready to replace our legacy work order system. This is a system that's used by our operations division. So we have 240 employees going out doing work each and every day. And this new system is going to be vastly improved. It's a cloud-based application that's really going to streamline our inventory, so that our crews are able to electronically order what they need to get their work done, and really eliminates a lot of the back office work that's very manual right now with tracking inventory. I'll let you know we're in full compliance with EPA's revised lead and copper rule. That's the one you might hear about from some of your colleagues in the region, where all the cities are having to inventory every service connection. And this is to ensure public safety. We're very fortunate in Virginia Beach, where we are a younger city. We have not discovered lead throughout our efforts thus far, but we have work to do, and we've got a couple years left of this inventory effort, but we remain in full compliance. In fact, very proud of our staff. We're leading the state in terms of where we are with our program. And lastly, I'll just mention aging infrastructure again. I'm getting ready to turn it over to Mark Babbitt, our engineering manager, who's going to talk about our CIP, which will give you a little bit more insight in terms of how we're proposing to address the utility aging infrastructure in the city. But I'll pause. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Barbara.
Just a comment. We've had a lot of fine things to say about our public safety people who deserve it, but so do our public utilities people who go out on some calls too that are maybe not the ones that they would have chosen to go out on, and let them know that they're also greatly appreciated.
I appreciate them, Ms. Henley.
Good point.
Just one quick question. Bob, when you, I remember a couple of years ago, we had Sandbridge and we had the way the pumps were done and the filtration and all that. You were working towards moving that to a new system or improving on that. Has that occurred? And if I'm asking that wrong, please help me.
You might be talking about the vacuum sewer system. Yeah. Yes, we've made tremendous improvements. We last lost vacuum at Sandbridge in 2016 after Hurricane Matthew.
Right.
And we put in a staged plan to try to make that area more resilient. And we've had great success in doing that. And we're actually now working on putting in a new monitoring system in Sandbridge that's going to enable us at each vacuum sewer pit to know what's going on. at that level. And those systems can be very unforgiving. Once you start losing pressure, they can go down in a hurry. So we work hard to maintain those, and we want to do everything reasonably that we can to make sure that they're up and running.
Yeah, just as a fun note, I wrote a paper on it for my master's degree, and it got chosen not because of my writing, but because of what it was, to present to the whole class and talk about it. And because it was an interesting infrastructure problem that was very unique to the ocean, anybody ocean communities that had them, it was a real problem. So anyway.
Well,
cool.
Chief, there's a lot of overlap between your line of business and ours. We're working on a new replacement water tank at Great Neck, and I would invite any council member who wants to see it. We don't build those very often, so if anybody has an interest in seeing it while it's going up, but Great Neck is being built right now, and one of the chief benefits that we're going to get from it is improved
water
pressure for fire suppression. So, okay, thank you. I'd like to introduce Mark Babbitt.
Welcome.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. I'm going to continue on. I get to talk about our CIP. So I'm pretty proud of that. We're doing a lot of good investment back into the community. But as you've heard, we do have an aging infrastructure. This is our CIP budget. We average about $40 million a year in reinvestment in the city. However, with the vast majority of our water and sewer systems developed in the 60s and 70s, the replacement time is coming up quickly. We couldn't afford to replace all of the materials that were put in place in the 60s and 70s. And you'll hear throughout my presentation, the American Water Works Association recommends 1% of your water line and sewer lines in your systems replaced a year to maintain a 100-year life cycle. Our life cycle right now is somewhat below 100 years. And we're looking to do that by proposing a slight increase over the next 6 years of our CIP. You can see that most of our money is spent on our aging infrastructure, but we are happy this year. There'll be 2 new water infrastructure projects. One will come down Providence Road, and it'll complete a system that was recommended in our comprehensive master plan, which will give us extensive redundancy on that side of the city. We also have a major line that will be coming down Princess Anne Road to also provide redundancy from our Newport feed. And this particular job was given a grant for pre-design that I believe you appropriated at your last meeting from the Navy. We look forward to expanding our systems and building in that redundancy. But we do have challenges. Right now, the rising project costs, I know you hear about it from everyone. I won't dwell on that. But asset renewal rate, I've brought it up once already. We have, for those that don't know, we have 416 pump stations, sanitary pump stations in Virginia Beach. Right now, we're funded to replace about 2 to 3 a year. So we got, 200 years before we come back to the one we just built, and nothing lasts that level. So we really are looking at how we're going to do better renovations of the mechanical equipment and also build 100-year structures so we can start getting ourselves back into line with what is recommended. But with that, let's talk about a few of the existing projects that are going on. This one just recently got completed. This one is right down on Atlantic Ave at 48th. There used to be a little pump station. It was almost on the road, if you know the area. It was right off the curb. That has been now relocated on the other side of the bike path. This project was completed. It's in District 6, and the initial investment was $2.5 million. The next one, that's a big project. A lot of people don't see them, but the oceanfront, the Atlantic Ave Water Valve Replacement Program, the meter valves for most of the waterfront, they're in really, really bad shape. So it has been a giant effort to go through. We finished phase 2. Well, we're in the middle of phase 2 because we stopped for the summer. And phase 3, which will be the final phase, is a coordination with Public Works, which we're really proud to see happen. This initial investment was $900,000 for the design and construction. One of our next projects that are going on in the city right now is Royal Palm Arch Water and Sewer Rehabilitation. This is about 3.5 miles of water and sewer. The total investment of all 3 phases is $11.7 million. The construction started in March of '24, and this phase is due to end in June or July of this year. And then we'll be looking at moving on to the next phase. It's a very exciting project. We are starting to focus more on our neighborhood replacements. You'll hear a few of them here today. Bob already brought up Great Neck Tank. We're very excited for this tank. This is a picture if you went out there right now. The tank is not built upside down, I promise. But there will be a tank raising in May. So what they'll do is they're going to come in and they're going to hydraulically lift that steel ball all the way to the top and lock it in place, and then they'll finish painting it and bring it into service. This is replacing a 50-year-old tank that was what we call hydraulically locked out. As the city grew, we needed to push water further away from where we get it, so the pressures had to go up. So this tank, the original tank, ended up being 11 feet too short, and we couldn't use it in the system. So it was actually locked out and turned off. And we're really glad that we're getting it back online, not just for continued pressure, but also firefighting needs. The next is Green Garden. This is going on. I was just out there yesterday. This is going on right now as well. This is a 2.3 mile neighborhood water main replacement. This is a $7.5 million investment. Construction started in October, and the estimated completion is 2026 spring. This is probably one of our biggest investments in neighborhoods, but I do want to emphasize again, I want to go back to that 1%. We have 1,700 miles of water main here in Virginia Beach. If we were to do 1%, about 17 miles or 7 miles, and that would be at a cost of about $46 million, which is higher than our entire CIP. So right now, we're at a replacement cost about at 300 years with the amount we replace with the budget we have. And we're working to do that by looking at new materials. HDPE piping is coming in. It's much less expensive to get installed. We actually had a force main that had a significant savings by switching to HDPE. So we are doing all we can to get us back into industry standards. I think we have one more here, Lynn Haven Water Pump Station. I know it's not right near the waterfront, but us at Public Utilities get very nervous during the summer. Lynn Haven is in need of new pumps and new electric. We're in the middle of upgrading that electric. But if Lynn Haven was to go out, we would not have the pressure or firefighting capabilities at the waterfront that we would normally have. And it would take a lot of operational efforts to turn on pumps on other parts of the cities to direct water there. So we're really happy that this is moving forward, and it will be in September of '26. We'll have all new pumps and all new electric. The big thing is the electric system presently cannot handle the higher horsepower pumps. So we're really glad that this is moving forward. So my last slide is the impacts right now that you heard about today. Aging infrastructure. We are a young city, but we're getting older, and we were built really fast. So we have to look at how much we can replace at any one time. We have a large amount of construction on the street. With all the money that was put into the Infrastructure Act, every utility in the country is trying to put pipe in the ground. Concrete, we had to do a concrete pour for the Great Neck Tank at 4 o'clock in the morning because we couldn't get concrete delivered to our site for 2 months based on the consumption of all the construction projects in the area. So there's a lot going on. Increased replacement costs, we've all heard that. And then I'm going to emphasize the decreased asset renewal rate. I put a little bubble here, AWWA, the 100-year, 1%. It's kind of a standard. You don't live by it. And I'll tell you, I've been in this industry 30 years. Nobody really hits it because it's so expensive, but it is a goal. In 2020, we were in it with our pump stations. We were able to do 5 a year at $2 million a year. We have a $10 million pump station budget. That got us just under the 100-year mark, which was pretty good. And now here we are in 2025. And due to the price and increases, we're about at 125-year replacement, slightly over it. We're going to try to bring that 125-year down by, again, more rigorous rehabs and trying new stations to be built with longer duration and less maintenance. With that, I'll take any questions.
Okay, any questions? Boy, it's getting expensive here, ain't it? My goodness. Hey, but listen, thanks for the presentation.
Anytime. Thank you for your time.
Stuff we got to do.
All right, Mr. Mayor, members of council, at this time, we'll be joined by Kimberly Knight, Director of the Libraries. She's going to come and give City Council an overview of the fiscal year 25 and 26 libraries budget.
Welcome.
Hello, how are you all today? I'm going to have Shelby Goldsmith sitting at that, helping me with the clicker in case I have some trouble. Okay. Good afternoon, Mayor Dyer, Vice Mayor Wilson. Oh, I don't see her here. City Council, Mr. Duhaney, and Attorney Stiles. I'm Kimberly Knight, and I'm the Director of the Public Libraries, and I'm pleased to present the fiscal year 2026 proposed budget for libraries. Thank you, Shelby. In the proposed fiscal year 2026 budget, the library will have 235.5 FTEs in an overall division, in a department with 2 overall divisions that has a total budget of $22,443,713. Our divisions are customer experience and shared services, and I'm just going to take a moment to tell you a little bit about those. Customer experience encompasses programming and community outreach team that helps us reach those across the city who might not otherwise have access to library services. They create library throughout the city by focusing on underserved segments of our community, like the Title I schools, preschools, and senior centers. Also, they organize libraries' participation in special events like Parks After Dark with our new bookmobile to ensure people know library is here for all of Virginia Beach. They coordinate and lead signature programming like the Summer Reading Challenge and the Battle of the Books, and still find time to serve on our public service desk at the Central Library. Also, customer experience encompasses our 10 service branches that serve our community. That includes the Central Library, the Joint Use Library, a law library, and 7 community branches that make us one unified library system. Branches provide programming for all ages, circulate materials, offer meeting spaces, and welcoming places for customers who can visit our more traditional brick and mortar buildings, which is not possible for everyone in our community. Within the Central Library is our Accessible Resources and Services Center, which supplies reading materials and programs for individuals with vision impairments, and they are branching out to serve customers with more accessibility needs. Next in customer experience is our Materials Management Unit, which handles purchasing and preparing a wide variety of circulating materials, from our books to our digital materials, and now to our nationally renowned surfboards that provide the backbone of what many customers expect at the libraries, which is great collections for them to borrow. Our data analysts and our web and special projects team are also part of customer experience. Shared services is a small but mighty team that encompasses those units that work more inwardly to ensure essential service delivery in areas such as finance, technology, training, compliance, and our fundraising and development, who liaise with our foundation and friends who give us about $200,000 annually in grants to support our programs and initiatives. Okay. Here are two visual versions of views of the library's budget. The left is a breakdown of our programmatic divisions, which you'll see 80% is customer experience, 19% is shared services, and approximately 1% of the library's budget is the law library, which is funded by court fees. Again, you'll see $112,000. That is approximately what the Friends of the Library give to us each year. On the right is a breakdown by expenditure type. It shows that libraries expends 10%, or about $2.1 million, on books, databases, digital, and supplies for our lending program. 10% for operations, and 1% again for the law library and grant-funded community program. Most notably, however, you'll see that, like most departments throughout the city, nearly 80% of our budget is allocated to salaries and fringe benefits for personnel. That doesn't help. Next slide, please. Thank you. This is a summary, another way of looking at our operating budget. It allows us to take a look and compare fiscal year 25 budget with the proposed fiscal year 26 budget. Looking across the customer experience and shared services lines, you will see where it looks like we've had some gains and losses in our FTEs on those lines. Those were caused by a multiple number of internal movements within the organization. One especially was as a result of this year's budget cuts, we created a library business center and 2 staff were moved into the admin offices. Also, you'll see movements that account for us centralizing with city communications and federating with the IT department to create new partnerships. Also, we received GrowSmart this year, and it's 350 FTEs. The general fund at the very bottom and the total lines represent the 5 positions that are proposed to be cut from the library's budget for fiscal year 26. To achieve the required 5.5% budget cut exercise required of all city departments, libraries needed to find $1.1 million in possible cuts. We looked at operations, but there was little to be found in that budget line. We considered the materials budget, but we have not seen an increase in the materials budget over several years. With the rising demand for digital materials and the impacts of inflation on all materials, cutting the materials budget would severely impact service delivery to our residents with fewer items to borrow and longer wait times. Therefore, the most flexible area to propose cuts was from our largest budget segment, the 78% in salaries and fringe benefits for personnel. Our vacancies fluctuate from week to week and often are in positions with more direct customer service focus. If council sees fit to restore those positions to the final budget, it will only strengthen the library's ability to provide services and execute at optimal levels with our full staffing complement. However, if the city's budget demands and needs that you're hearing all day require that libraries must ultimately sustain cuts in staffing, I'm confident on 2 fronts. 1, libraries will create another efficiency like the Library Business Center to ensure that we can provide continuity of great services to our community. And 2, we've been working closely with the Human Resources Department to hold current vacancies in libraries where many, if not all, staff who could be potentially impacted by the staffing cuts may remain in libraries, but in different capacities. Their roles would involve more direct and frequent customer interactions through service points, programming, and in outreach, all of which are in high demand to help us achieve our mission. I recently saw a data point that shows we have 81,000 or about 81,500 active library card holders. Having more staff directly working with our customers in outreach programming and in service points will help us raise that limit because we'd like to reach more of our Virginia Beach population. During fiscal year 25, the library has been bustling with projects to meet our mission, vision, and objectives. Thank you to Council for supporting our efforts with the new overnight parking ordinance that help connect residents to city services while helping us maintain a safe and welcoming environment at the library for everyone. Staff have added homebound delivery services to those physically unable to visit our libraries, expanded programming for adults with disabilities, and increased the number of libraries embedded throughout the community, with the newest one being at the Juvenile Detention Center. GrowSmart returned to libraries, and we already have moved forward with 2 major key initiatives. Read Across America Day was an overwhelming success, and then we have the upcoming Celebrating Children's event that's planned at Mount Trashmore on April 26th. Okay. Next, I want to take a few moments to address some issues that have been swirling around the public library lately related to ongoing initiatives. First, I want to bring your attention to the left side of the slide, and it depicts the logo for our Building Together project that we started in 2024 to help shift the culture, the internal culture at the library. The library executive team interviewed 3 city contractors and selected Fountain Works based in North Carolina, who has successfully facilitated several important projects for the city. Why did we do this? Well, we had results from 2 surveys that showed between 20 to 26% of staff reported dissatisfaction with internal communications and the outcomes of restructuring initiatives that took place between 2020 and 2022. Also, we discovered a planning document dated 2013 that listed communication issues, ownership and letting go issues, issues with the culture, and perceived favoritism within the organization as overwhelming staff concerns dating from over a decade ago. These findings showed that while we had a near-perfect bell curve in our results, with the dissatisfied forming a minority of staff compared to the 75% reporting being very satisfied, or neutral, they represented a very vocal group, and we worried that they might impact the morale throughout the rest of the workforce. Therefore, we felt that we needed to invest in professional facilitation to shift and heal the long-standing issues impacting the library's internal culture. At the launch of the Building Together project, Fountain Works engaged 76% of our workforce through direct interviews and surveys, and their findings are depicted on the chart on the right. As you can see, a combined 66% of staff strongly agreed that they found that VBPL was a satisfactory place to work. 14% were neutral. 16% reported dissatisfaction, and 4% reported strong dissatisfaction in working in the organization. Now, I like to get all A's, so I'd like everybody to be satisfied. However, it still depicted a bell curve to a point. Again, while the dissatisfied added up to a minority of only about 20%, they are part of the VBPL family, and we tried many ways to engage them and bring them back to the fold. However, their continued disengagement led to a groundswell of discontent that has now overflowed into our customers' perception of the library. Finally, please see the final results on the chart where it says only 33% strongly agreed that they felt connected with others across the library system. While 22% were neutral, the greater percentage, 46%, responded in disagreement or strong disagreement about feeling connected with others across the library organization. This finding, along with learning that the library's customer satisfaction rating had decreased from 98% to approximately 90% in an early 2023 customer satisfaction survey, led me to believe we needed to make change in the library. Our services could become stagnant and falter if we did nothing. All of these factors led me to consider staffing rotations within the library. While currently on hold, while we wait the budget outcomes, rotations are a common practice in public service delivery. Not only are they used in multi-branch library systems, but in other departments such as police, fire, code enforcement, parks and recreation, EMS, and human services. It is known to help organizations spark innovation, bring fresh perspectives, upskill staff as they learn to serve different segments of our community, improve interdepartmental relations, and readiness to serve at all duty stations. Further, it could help us achieve more consistent operational practices across the system and better feel like one unified library system serving our 460,000 residents that make up the Virginia Beach community. For the upcoming fiscal year, I'd like to thank the council again for supporting the CIP project that will allow us to replace our dated materials handling system, which helps us move all the thousands of things around and get them sorted and back on the shelves to serve our customers. Our teams have worked on many projects, and one of them includes refreshing our summer reading program. We're working to restore the hotspot lending. It's been very painful not being able to offer that to our customers, so we're very close to restoring that. And we're planning to refresh or replace our integrated library system to improve our catalog for our external and internal customers. VBPL remains an award-winning library system. We've won national awards like the Urban Library Council's Award for Innovation in Children's Programming, and along with state and local awards for our creativity, innovation, and service to our public and to each other. We look forward to the upcoming fiscal year knowing that no matter the budget outcomes, we will continue to serve our residents with resilience, innovation, and dedication with an eye to continuous quality improvement and optimal service delivery. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Cash?
Thank you, Director Knight, for your presentation. When I was running for office, I'm reminded of the public library, and I had told a group of people I believe that we need a public library, and to which some of them came back and said, why do we need a public library? They are ancient and they're not in use anymore. I mean, you can just go to your phone. And, and I says, well, I don't think you understand the services that are offered at the public library. And not just that, it's children. They get to find another source away from home for academia, right? If they don't have the books at home or the scholastic books at home that they can't get from their phones or access, then the public library provides that resource. Not just that, it ties a community together. Then after that, he says, oh, okay, I can see some merit in a public library. And the reason why I bring this up is I get very passionate about libraries because that's where my mother took me and my sister. And that's where I was able to read above my grade point average and above my grade. But not just that, I connected to people who cared. I mean, the library is going through changes, but we have to adapt in order to stay efficient. And so I think those who are scholarly, in order to be a librarian, there's so much schooling you have to complete in order to be a librarian. And with that being said, we don't want to replace librarians. We just want to adapt to the changing times so that we can regain our being relevant. And so I just want to say I'm a big fan and thank you for your work, Director Knight.
Thank you, Councilmember Jackson Green.
Well stated, Cash. Jennifer?
Thank you, Mayor. But yeah, I always want to call you Dr. Knight. You're like, not yet.
One day.
One day. So thank you for the update. And for, so the council has received a number of messages about the library system. And so to clarify for some of the individuals who have been sending the messages and for my own clarity, following along with what you said. So when did you start as the director?
March of 2022.
Okay, so yeah, because we started around the same time. So it sounds like you're saying that there have been some cultural challenges ongoing in the library system. So perhaps sounds like you've inherited some of those challenges and trying to navigate it as the incoming director. Some of the frustrations we've received through emails have been about staffing changes and shuffling or moving staff members around. Am I hearing it correctly? Is the move in response to some of the survey data that you received to help integrate people, increasing connection to each other in the library system?
Exactly. Some of the data we heard did say that people didn't feel connected with the rest of the library system. And in talking with newer staff, they also said at times, one person said they would lay down their life for the people in their own branch, but not so much for the rest of the system. And I believe my predecessor really started the work of trying to make us into one unified system where we move in the same direction. And I picked up that work and I've tried to continue it. And in fact, have tried to improve it.
I will say, as one of the library liaisons with the rest of the volunteers that are a part of the board, there's been an effort to visit all of the libraries. So an intentional, we typically meet at the central library, but an effort to say, hey, let's take a tour of this branch and this branch and this branch, because it is one system. This way we can understand the different communities and the different parts of the city. So I know that that's something that you've done with the board. So it sounds like it's, an attempt to try to keep that value throughout the organization. So I just wanted to make that point in case there were people listening that were like, what is happening? Because the council has received a number of messages with questions and expressing concerns about some of those changes. So I appreciate you speaking directly to it. Thank you.
Amelia and then Barbara.
Thank you so much. In reference to what council member is saying just now, she mentioned Rouse, I've also received quite a lot, and those were mainly to do with the cuts. We had people who said it's been there multiple years, and suddenly they're being cut. And maybe have you taken the time to explain to them what you said today about the 5.5% budget cuts? So you have to handle that difficult situation of balancing where do you put what. And then one of your requests, and you mentioned 7 to 8% in salary cuts. And you would like us to consider trying to put some of that back, especially in this inflationary cost. What other suggestions would you give us? Well, what I'm trying to convey is that I understand the full picture of what the city is facing. We're trying to increase our public safety. We're trying to get them paid. We're also trying to deal with our CIP costs. There are a lot of stressors on the city's budget, and I understand that libraries may need to sustain these cuts, and if we do, we're going to come together and find solutions to continue to provide service. However, if you all find it in the budget and you can put those positions back, we will happily receive them, and we will still be putting people to work in more public services facing work, because that is where the needs in the library. As I mentioned, out of 460,000 residents, we only have about 81.5 thousand people who have active library cards. I'd like to get that up to about 400,000 if I can. And a lot of that happens, or even 460,000. A lot of that happens when I speak to a person who is knowledgeable about me and my area and who can tell me about library services across the library. It also happens through the work of our outreach team, who also brings in branch people and go out into the community and tell people about libraries. So as we see innovations happening in the library world, I'd like to take advantage of those so that I can have more of my people facing out into the public and shaking hands and helping put library cards into their hands. It reminds me of, the old book of Who Moved My Cheese. It's that feeling, it's the culture they're so used, and, I always tell people change is constant. So my advice to you, just like you're doing what you're doing today, I wanted to bring that up. And each person who wrote me, I said, listen today, because then they can hear and understand the reason that's behind this. And we can see it in your face. From the first time I met you, 2022, to right now, that you are almost personally carrying that burden. And library content. I have a little 8-year-old, just March 31st, she turned granddaughter. And when she comes and we ask her, where do you want to go? Library.
Yes.
So this is important that we're able to at least sit together as a group, even if we cannot meet you the whole way, to see where we can reach halfway so we can, bring that change about. And you can stay with us. I really love it here, and I love what I do. I've been doing libraries for 30 years, and I look forward to continuing to lead and ensure that we continue to have service delivery as our North Star in the library. Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Barbara, did you have something?
Well, I just have to admit, I don't understand what I'm hearing. And this is one of the things that I've noted that I'm going to vote on this budget, I really need to understand, because I think maybe two things have happened. One being that we're looking at making our budget, our cuts of persons out of the libraries at the same time that there is this proposal to make some shifts. And maybe they are two separate things, maybe they are related, I don't know. One thing I'm asking for, I would like a copy of your remarks. I believe you were reading, so I think you've got them written. And I think you've got a lot of data there that I would really like to be able to read and understand, because it was too much for me to process at one time. So if I could get a copy of your remarks. But I really do want to talk with the people who have been sending us these emails to understand what it is that is the problem. I know that people are very, very, very concerned about their libraries, and they love their libraries, and there's just apparently a feeling that something might be going to change some of that, and we don't want to make anybody less happy with their libraries in whatever process that might be. So I just don't understand, and I would like to have more information. I need it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Hey, anybody else? Thank you so very much. You're a point of pride in Virginia Beach. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, at this time, we'll be joined by Public Works Director LJ Hansen. He's going to go over the fiscal year 25 and 26 budget for the Public Works Department.
Hey, LJ, how you doing?
Doing well. Good afternoon. It's my privilege to present the proposed budget for fiscal year 26 for the Department of Public Works. I apologize. There's a lot of graphs in here, but there's no better way to tell the story of Public Works. We're a large organization. In fact, if you look at our organizational summary here, you'll see that we have something called groups, and you don't see that in most of the other departments, and that largely is because we're made up of such a large organization with diverse functions. Some of the part of the presentation I'll give to you today will be sectioned out by groups, but those are major groupings of things that we do in Public Works that you're all familiar with: the facilities group, fleet management group, the operations group, parking and management, et cetera. Inside those groups, we have 26 different total divisions with a total FTE count, proposed FTE count of 1,038.88, and a total fiscal year 26 proposed budget of $273,461. This is the first of several different charts that show where that $273 million is put. If you look, you'll see that the largest portion of what we have in the budget is the operations group at $117 million. But that $117 million is made up of multiple funding sources. So you'll see that there's general fund, stormwater, tourism and investment, Sandbridge, SSD, et cetera. I'm going to assume that most of you will probably take this information in better looking at the graphs that were provided to you. But there are a few things that I'd like to point out as we go along the way. Of course, the operations group, again, is the largest in terms of the budget, with waste management and facilities also having very significant parts of the budget. In terms of the number of employees, operations, no surprise, also the largest part of the group, 418 FTEs, with facilities having 210 and waste management at 157. Also looking at the totality of the program as organized by fund. So as I mentioned, the $273 million is made up of several different funds. Public Works' general fund is about $116 million, with Parks and Recreation contributing $4 million, tourism and investment, $5 million, et cetera. You can see on down the road. All of those different funding sources are transferred into and out of the Public Works budget to make up the totality of what it is that we're doing. Looking at sources that make up the general fund, and if you remember from the previous slide, general fund is at $116 million. That $116 million is not all from real estate, though. There's a significant part of that, about $81.2 million, that comes out of other sources, with $57 million of that coming from state funding for the Virginia Department of Transportation. The stormwater lockbox makes up about $20.6 million, and transfer from other funds and miscellaneous completing the balance. One thing I wanted to point out is you'll see a change in the amount of funding that we're receiving this year, about almost $2.4 million in change that we'll be receiving more this year than what we have received in years past. And again, looking at that in a slightly different way in terms of the pie chart, you can see that overall the general fund makes up the vast majority of what it is that Public Works is doing, but that general fund made up from multiple different funding sources that go into the general fund, with stormwater utility being second largest and the waste management being third largest. In terms of the how each group is funded, what you can see is kind of a summary or a more in-depth from what the first slide, the summary was. Again, showing that the fiscal year 26 proposed budget, about $273 million. Each one of the different groups is shown here with change. What you should see is that most of them remain relatively flat with some differences in terms of the operations group. And as I mentioned, operations did receive additional funding from VDOT this year. We're also asking for a little bit of assistance in terms of some of the council priorities, and I'll talk about that here in just a moment. And then parking management group also saw a 12% change, 12% representing the difference between 7 and 9 employees. So that represents a large change, but it's in large part because there's so very few permanent employees in the parking management group. Most of that work is actually done by contractors. And again, just another look at how the formulas break out. One thing I wanted to kind of point out on this that I think is valuable is if you look at the amount of professional services, we're putting about $70.8 million into professional services. If you look at salaries, it's a little bit less than that. And what I hope you'll understand is that the people that oversee the professional services are the people that make up the salaries. And it's not a one-for-one relationship because a lot of what we're doing isn't one-for-one. But it is worth noting that we're trying to get the biggest return for the taxpayer dollars by putting as much work to professional services and reducing the number of salaried staff that have to oversee that work. But it comes at a limit. At some point, we don't have enough people to do more professional services. We don't have the ability to contract more than what we can do with what we have in terms of staff. I think we're getting pretty close to that limit, but I just felt that was worth pointing out. On to the more narrative part, just a couple of things that I thought council might want to know in terms of some additional staff. We're requesting 6 FTEs, and that is in large part because as we return staff back to campus, if you recall, when this building was constructed, we didn't have anybody in building 2. So at that time, building 2, staff were deployed. As we've reshuffled and brought all the buildings back online, now with building 3 coming online, and then 33 coming back online at the end of the year, we have really more square footage than what we had historically. And so the 6 FTEs are to restore some lost custodial staff and to make up for the difference of what we didn't have before. We've requested 2 vertical construction inspectors. That's for the buildings and the maintenance that we're doing on the facility side of the house. What we found is that really has been a tremendous return. We were doing a lot of that through contract, but it got to the point that the contracts were it's just not worth the return. And that kind of goes back to my comment, whether we have people that are actually doing the inspecting or whether they're watching over somebody else doing it. What we found is that by adding 2 more construction inspectors, we could actually be smarter with taxpayer dollars and have to contract out a little bit less. And then we've also asked for a concrete crew and some equipment to go along with it. That'll be funded by the increase in VDOT revenue, but that'll also help us with some other priorities as it relates to ADA compliance. In the TIP fund, we've asked for an increase in contracted manpower. This really associates to special events and some of the other things that we're trying to accomplish at the oceanfront. Stormwater Enterprise Fund, this is consistent with the presentation that we delivered in December of last year that talks to Jacob's report and the stormwater fund analysis. Parking Management Enterprise Fund, these 2 FTEs that were requested. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about why that's requested. But again, if you recall, we have 9 employees today. That'll increase us to a total of 11. And then City Garage, which is the internal service fund, 4 FTEs. 2 of those would be for fire, 1 for the marine shop, and 1 for the small engine shop. Again, the TIP fund, the stormwater, parking management, and the garage are all non-general funds. So those are not tied to the real estate rate. I think I lost my presentation. There we go. Initiatives that are underway. As I mentioned, the ERU and the presentation we did back in December of 2024, there is a proposed increase of 8.9 cents per day to increase the ERU beginning in July. And then I mentioned the concrete truck and some of the other stuff that were tied to curb ramps and ADA ramps. This is in response to the city's ADA settlement with the Department of Justice and trying to get a real dent made into the backlog. Changes in the parking garages. We have 2 new garages that'll be coming online, actually 3. Atlantic Park is 2 different garages, so we have 2 parking garages at Atlantic Park and then a garage at Pembroke Mall and Gateless Technologies. All of that means that we just need a little bit more assistance in being able to keep an eye on staff. And then just for council's information as we look forward, there's a couple of challenges that we're keeping an eye on. One is power rates. VEPGA, which is the state's negotiating board with Dominion, is still in rate negotiations. The last that we got out of that shows that there's probably going to be an increase to the streetlight budget. Some of the rates have actually decreased slightly, but some have gone up. The one we're concerned about is the streetlight rate, and that could represent about $1 million increase for the city. We can cover it in the budget that we've proposed, but it is a concerning trend and something we want to be aware of for the future. And then lastly, fluctuating commodity prices and tariffs. It is the unknown of the day. The swings that we're seeing back and forth is very challenging to budget and very challenging to predict around. And with that, I'd be happy to take any questions that you all may have.
Any questions? Michael?
Thank you very much for your presentation, and much like many of the other departments we heard from today, the work you do is so vast and diverse, and you work 24 hours a day really to maintain the operations and services and safety that we all rely upon. So I'm very grateful to you and for your entire team. I have a question, though, not about this budget, but looking ahead, because one of the most common and frequent issues that we hear about, certainly that I hear about, and Mr. Schulman referenced this earlier, is about traffic calming. And, you know, we've worked together on that in many different instances. But with the adoption of the speed cameras, some additional resources will come online to provide some greater flexibility to potentially address some of the traffic calming measures that people are seeking in their neighborhoods. I'm just wondering how you envision, like, what tools will that new funding source unlock to address those issues? From, I know part of it's on the PD and the enforcement side. Another part of it is on potentially engineering, crosswalks, sidewalk. I mean, so what are some of the tools that you think that funding could potentially unlock for the future?
Yes, sir. So the operating budget, which I just presented, shouldn't really dramatically change as a result of the cameras coming online. I believe the proposal and some of the state legislation talks about moving that money into, forgive me for saying it, a lockbox that is geared towards making improvements towards safety, just as you just talked about. We have a CIP program that currently exists. That money, should it become available, would increase the amount of revenue that we would be able to have to implement those types of measures. Things like crosswalks, flashy signs, that type of stuff. We would still have to be consistent with what good practices are and be diligent in how we apply the practices. But it would definitely give us the opportunity to treat more treatments than what we are able to treat today.
And just as a follow-up, does your team, and if you don't, maybe it's something you can look forward to you can look to the future. I think what would be helpful, particularly as we receive these, because you and your professional staff will have great respect and deference to your professional expertise and certifications. And then I also have deference and respect, of course, for the citizens who have lived experience with these traffic safety issues. Does your office have a prioritization of need in those neighborhoods? In other words, you know where the hotspots are, you know where the complaints are, and it's really important, I think, to have a dispassionate, analytical, strategic approach to where the safety needs are, and then match that with resources and apparatus, to borrow a word, that would be appropriate for that need. So I'm just wondering if you have that type of prioritization, that stacking of this is the most dangerous area, this neighborhood has a real need and it could be improved with this, and that way we could rely upon that as we get complaints and say, I understand you have this problem, but we also have, in the scarcity of resources, we want to make sure your needs are heard, but also you have to know this neighborhood has got a life and death situation or whatever.
So what I would say is that for large corridors, we certainly do. We do a yearly study, and that's done through our Department of Traffic Engineering, or not department, but our Division of Traffic Engineering. They do a corridor study every year, and they can bring you a binder that will show you how each segment of the major corridors ranks in terms, and each intersection in terms of where they are. Smaller residential streets don't usually merit that same level of analysis. However, we do have some standards under which that we would typically look at things. I think the challenge can sometimes be that there are certain communities that are more vocal about their desires and their wishes, and other communities where there might actually be a greater need, and sometimes helping us to identify where the communities are that maybe need and are not advocating for themselves, and comparing that to communities that maybe have not the same need, but are very vocal in advocating for themselves.
That's what I'm curious about. Yeah. And for example, you know, we had this sign dedication in Queen City, which I understand for many years didn't even have paved streets in some instances. So it's hard to compare traffic safety, you know, in one neighborhood when you had severe under-resourcing in another. And how do we, and I appreciate that on the main corridors, but how do we rack and stack those other neighborhood concerns is something I'm interested in, and not just something to think about long-term. And
yes, sir. We do follow the police reports in terms of accidents and serious accidents and injuries, fatalities, that type of thing. So we are aware of major things. Minor things sometimes is a little more challenging. Yes, sir, I hear you.
Okay, anybody else at this point? You know, once again, thanks again. I think we're getting a little bit of an in-service education today on the magnitude and complexity it takes to run a city. And I really appreciate it. Thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, the last budget presentation for the day will be Director Eileen Smith presenting the Human Services budget for fiscal year 25 and 26.
Last but not least. Long day for you guys.
Best for last.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
All of our questions to you.
I know. That's what I was thinking too. All right. Well, I'm Eileen Smith. Thank you, Mayor, City Council members, City Manager, and City Attorney. I also have some wonderful staff here that I would like to thank. So we have our finance team that helps to prepare this, Tracy Gore, Raymond McAvoy, and Christy Carlson. And then we also have, of course, Cindy Buckler, who works our slides and helps to pull together PowerPoint. And Angie Hicks is here, who is our Behavioral Health Developmental Services Deputy Director. So a big thank you to them. We did put today some little goodies on your table. We gave you a new resource guide for our department. Looks like this, and a pin. Yes, you're showing me your pin. So we gave you a pin. The pin, Councilman Hutchinson definitely wanted that pin, and we got them ordered in time for this meeting so that we could get them. And you see how big they are as well.
Hey, I appreciate
you can definitely see this pin on your.
You did something that a lot of people don't with me, so I appreciate you listening.
We always listen to you. We always listen to you. Okay, so today I'm here to talk about our operating budget. I'm going to go through my slides. The first one's in particular a little faster. You've seen these slides for the other departments. So we have 1,184 FTEs. That's city positions. We also have another 200, approximately 200 contract positions, which work with our programs and help us with our staffing and our staffing requirements. So we need those 200 contract or temporary positions to run the programs that we have now in Human Services. We have 4 divisions, and our budget is about $157 million. This is the proposed budget for 25-26, of course. So our next slide is the breakdown, the pie chart that you've seen as many times today and with all the budget presentations. Our biggest part of our budget is our behavioral health and developmental services part. That's about 48% of our budget. And then social services, you will see, is 39%. So behavioral health is about $75 million, and social services is $61 million. Administration, and then our newer department, or our newer division, which I'm going to talk about in a second here, community justice, they're both around $10 million. Okay, where do we get our funding from? We get a very large amount from the state. 48 million comes from the state. That's about 46 million of our total budget. And a good portion of that, about 23 million of it, is behavioral health developmental services. The other 18 million social services, and then there's a little bit for community corrections at 6.7 million of that. In our federal amount of funding that we receive, the 24% of our budget at $25 million, Social services is the majority of the recipient for that at 28 or 21.8 million of that entire 24 million. So they get the majority of that. And then about 3.8 of it comes to BHDS, or Behavioral Health Developmental Services. Miscellaneous is about 2 million, or of the 3.3 million, 2 million of that is for our Comprehensive Services Act, or Children's Act. And over in the fees area, I want to mention that the 28 million there, or 26% of our budget, majority, over 90%, comes from Medicaid. So that's what we're billing for our services. The other amounts, self-pay and contracts, and that are very small amounts. Okay, so here are the 4 divisions, 4 very large divisions. We have, well, other than administration. We have BHDS, I'm going to focus on the service side. BHDS, which Angie is here today, 77 million, as we noted. There's about 681 staff currently, but when we are reorganizing to create this community justice division that is new for the next budget cycle, she has about 30 positions or so that will be transferred to that division. Social services, which is 67 million in the previous budget or current, and will be 61 in next year's budget, is going down about 73 positions for the juvenile detention center. So that part, and the part from Angie, which is for the pretrial and probation program, boy, that's a tongue twister, both of those will go under our new division, which is the next one, that's the Community Justice Division. And that division itself will be about 101 staff. So you can see here that we actually went up 3 staff and a very small amount at 2%. Okay? All right, so what are the major changes? As mentioned, this year we did not have a 100% target. We had a lower target. So in order to manage the lower target that we received for our budget, what we're planning to do is increase this Medicaid revenue, this fee revenue, by 1.2 million, or 5%, to try to make up this reduction that we have. How we're going to do that is we're going to increase the number of recipients at some of our services, such as our Beach House program and our Skill Quest program. Each of those programs are going to increase by about 10 individuals coming a day, and we hope to bring in more revenue that way. And also, we're going to bill more for intensive outpatient, so about 20 clients more that we will be billing in that. And so we're hoping to bring in more revenue under Medicaid. We did see an increase that we had to ask for related to security services, our leases escalating, custodial services, and a little bit of an increase in the guardianship services cost. So you will see there that we had to increase our budget by $856,000 to accommodate for those changes in our budget. We also requested 2 new family services specialist positions in adult protective services. Those positions in adult protective services, our caseloads are running somewhere in the range of 15 to 20 cases too high on each caseload. So she has about 6 positions that are contract positions, but she can't fill them very easily. It's very hard to find a temporary worker in adult protective services to do these investigations, check into the fraud and abuse that can happen with our senior citizens. So we are asking for 2 city positions, and then for the 2 city positions, 2 of our contract positions will not be hired. So she would kind of do a swap there in the budget. And also we're asking for 1 more juvenile detention center counselor, which will be funded at about 50% from DJJ. Okay. So what are some of the excellent things that happened this past year that we want to note for you today? Some of the stuff that we have been doing is enhancing our community awareness. So you will see here that we did approximately 183 education or training events, and they were provided to over 9,000 residents. These training events are things like mental health first aid or Revive, and out in the public, they are really very receptive to receive these trainings and learn from us on how to manage some of the mental health things that they're seeing in their community. In addition, we did 95 community engagement events. A community engagement event would be something like our staff going to the public schools college night, or something in partnership with the police, for example, where they do a parent and youth reach out night at LEDA. We're there. We're helping to promote our services and explain our services to the parents and youth that attend those events. 66 media campaigns resulting in over 9 million impressions. What an impression is when you see something related to our services, and the way that you see some of these things are either in commercials, maybe at a gas station, you see us on the gas pump, or at Lynn Haven Mall, you go into the bathroom and there's information about human services and how you can connect with us. So that's an impression, and we have done over 9 million in the past year, or that's how we calculated it. In addition, we have opened the new Parent-Child Interaction Therapy Clinic, and both Councilman Hutchinson and Councilman Rouse have both come and seen that facility and seen the room and been able to connect with the clinicians on how they do that work with the parents. And actually, you mentioned at the last meeting that you were here, or one of the last meetings, on how impactful that is. We had a parent who was giving us kind of her own impression of it at our March 10th joint meeting, where we have Social Services Board and the CSB Board come together. She gave her impression of just what a difference it made for her family, and was very impactful for everybody who saw that, but mainly for their family, of how they can function now. We also added school-based outpatient therapy at the Renaissance Center, or Renaissance Academy. We've seen about 36 referrals there, and there are 2 clinicians there now. So some other accomplishments that we have had is in relation to substance abuse disorder services. Our Pathways Center renovations were completed in April of 2024, and we did an open house on April 30th. We also have a new intensive outpatient program that launched in July of 2024. We're doing group therapy through that program. About 9 to 12 hours per week, an individual can receive therapy in the group, and then also individual therapy. They can get up to 4 times a week. We have a peer drop-in center, which also opened in April, and they're serving up to about 150 individuals a month. In terms of our new opiate abatement initiatives, we have held numerous stakeholder meetings throughout 2023 and 2024 to implement our new abatement initiatives. We also successfully applied for 6 projects in November. You approved that in December, that it would go through, and we received that funding for FY 2025, about $636,000 in funding very recently. And with that funding, we are able to do some enhancements to our youth peer services, adding a peer staff member, as well as at JDC, adding a therapist to work with substance use issues and substance abuse diagnoses that are going on there. Excuse my flub up there. Parks and Rec, we also had purchased a curriculum for them called This Is Not About Drugs, and they're training 5 staff to deliver that in all the Parks and Rec centers, or a good majority of the centers. We also have with the police department the LEAD project that is going on, where police engage the kids. They have the mascot that, the dressed up mascot that also goes out into the public, and they purchase the curriculum, and we're planning to have training on this LEAD project in August, where 150 staff members will attend a 2-day training at LEDA to be able to deliver that out in public when they go, probably parks after dark and things like that, where the police are. They'll be able to deliver that curriculum to the kids. And then there is an online curriculum that the schools have purchased for SUD education that's going to be online, that the kids can access. And the health department is doing a teen-to-teen social media project, where they're going to have 2 of their youth or their teens that they hire do that kind of reach out via social media, where they can reach their peers and connect with them and pass along the message about substance use and the dangers of it. Okay, in social services, In April of 2024, members of the child welfare team received national recognition for their work that they did with a youth in who was being human trafficked. And so they not only worked with this youth in terms of her own counseling and therapy, but what they also did was helped her to get to court and testify against this predator. And so with that, they were able to have an impact in terms of other kids and other youth that could have been trafficked if he had been out on the street. And so it was a very, very big endeavor for them, and they received a national award for that, for their outstanding work. The Child Services team is looking at enhancing what we're doing with kin and fictive kin. And what that means is kin is, of course, people that you live with or your uncle, aunt, that type of thing. But a fictive kin person might be somebody who's your neighbor that you have been very close to, or another family member that you're not necessarily living with, but you're very close to, that can take that child in and care for them. So they're trying to work to enhance this for our foster care kids. They're doing it, of course, by educating staff and addressing barriers that we might have for our foster care children who are not able to live with their kin, to decrease the amount of kids that are placed in care without family. So we're getting closer and closer to the state marker. The state would like you to be about 25%, and we're getting closer to that with our foster care kids. Adult Protective Services hosted their first adult abuse walk at Mount Trashmore last June. There were only over 60 participants in that walk, and they're doing another one this June. After these walks and after these things that we do to engage others in the community, we tend to see a spike in people referring to us and interested in our services. And so that's always a good thing, and it did happen, of course, last June, and will happen again, I'm sure. Wendy, who is our Adult Protective Services supervisor, has enhanced other departments across the city to create a multidisciplinary team. So you can see here who the members of the team are, from the fire department, the Commonwealth's Attorney Office, Housing Department, of course, others in our department, in the Behavioral Health Developmental Services side. And they all come together to talk about a high-risk senior or someone who is elderly that is potentially being abused, and how all those departments can come together and work towards a better outcome for that individual. And Employment Services, which is housed over at the HRC, the Housing Resource Center, does a hiring event for our clients who are homeless or seeking jobs, and their social services clients for the most part every month. This is something that not every city does, and that our staff started to do just to engage people and get also the community providers who may be able to hire them to come in and know this is a standard opportunity that we're going to give you. You'll be able to hire these folks into various jobs. A lot of jobs are offered by cleaning companies, Goodwill, even Norfolk Airport has hired some of our folks. So each time they have one of these events, they're shooting for 50% contingent job offers. They're usually getting around 60% of the individuals who attend get offered a job either on the spot or a contingent job offer. So we're getting people hired out there. And that is it for the presentation part.
Okay, any questions? Cash?
Thank you so much for your presentation. As I understand behavioral health, and one of the things that I looked for is CIT training, right? Crisis intervention training.
Right.
With law enforcement specifically, right? Does your department, and I didn't see, and maybe this is more education for me, where would that fall under your training, law enforcement, those who are in law enforcement? What department would that come out of?
Sure. That is under our Emergency Services Department.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you look on page 7 of your resource guide, you're going to see the emergency services information. We also do the mobile co-responder team with the police, and we are a part of all of the CIT training. So our supervisor for the emergency services program is doing that training for the police and involved in actively providing that information to them so that I think about 3/4 of the police department is trained at this point.
It's true. Any of the new hires would
Yes.
be trained. So,
Yes, sir.
are you in need of more staff, or you are? And I'm asking. Well, that was an open-ended check, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, you know what I
like that.
Right? No. Wait. Budget conscious. I mean, that's important. It's important because mental health is on the rise.
Definitely.
But yet stress and law and fire, we want to manage that too, so that we don't have things that would lead us to disasters that we can contain, right?
Correct.
And so I just want to make sure that this is an area that you're looking at. You are staffed, right?
Yes, we have had some issues with staffing in that area. It is a very stressful job, high demand. We're 24/7, just like public safety in this area. And so we have had some issues staffing that area. We're doing a little bit better now. With the help of our city manager and deputy city manager, we've done some incentives, a little bit to boost our salaries and boost actually the bonus aspect of our salary. Therefore, we were able to hire, and it really was kind of like towards the end of COVID where that really got to where we were hiring a few more people. But we can always have more staff doing this work because people do get burnt out on it. And, at times maybe you need to switch to a different position for a while, maybe do outpatient therapy for a while and then go back to emergency services. But emergency services is one of the highest stress jobs that we have.
Thank you, and I appreciate your leadership and the budget that you prepared.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jennifer.
Thank you, Mayor. Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
I have 2 comments for page 7 and then a question, maybe 2, between pages 4 and 5 or slide 4 and 5. So 7, when you mentioned enhanced community awareness, just to give y'all kudos, I did a drop-in at Boys and Girls Club, which is located in my district. And I asked for staff to come out and they brought a bunch of goodies, but some of the education that they do to the community was things like gun locks. So Councilmember Henley, actual locks to pass out to families that may own guns that don't have them. Information about how to appropriately discard a medication, just things that I hadn't thought about, but just, hey, if you got, old prescriptions lying around, here are safe ways to get rid of it, especially if there are kids in the home. There's a lot of work that you do and maybe things that we don't think about, obviously, but once you know it, you know it. So thank you for that work. Regarding the parent-child interaction therapy, which again is like a very cool thing that y'all are doing, are you one of 2?
Thank you for recognizing that. Yes, CHKD is the other one in our region that we're aware of, but between CHKD and our program, we're pretty much always full. So they send us referrals, we take them in if we can. We have served, I believe it was about 47 children and families last year, and we expect that to go up. So yes, we are one of 2. And the training to be a PCIT therapist is tremendous. So a big shout out to our staff that have gone through it. It takes a long time to go through that training. There are a lot of educational aspects and things that you must go through to become that type of therapist where you're working with the family on that level and able to get them through those challenging behaviors like we do in that therapy.
Yeah, I want to make sure because the city of Virginia Beach has all these really great things going on. And just to help the public visualize it, this kind of therapy, it's, the parent will have an earpiece in their ear and a child may be going through a big emotion or maybe acting out. And there's a therapist there that's talking to the parent, helping the parent parent the child. So where the parent, it might be a lot of emotions for both the parent and child, there's a therapist who can say, okay, this is, walking through, so then the parent can learn the skills to then take home to their family and others. So then the whole family is benefits by these skills. So
they're on the other side of the glass is an important part of this. They're not being seen by the child. So the child doesn't know the therapist is there. And it should be stated, this is not a normal little upset child. This is a little bit more than just maybe throwing a tantrum. This is escalating.
Yes,
to some level.
You do know on that floor when the therapy is going on. It's loud. Yes.
Yeah, so very cool that we're doing that. A point of clarity for myself on slide 5. So it shows for fiscal year 25-26 a negative change for BHDS and social services, and that's because you've moved positions to this community justice.
Correct.
Okay. And then noting that almost a quarter of your budget is federal dollars, do you have any information or updates about other services? And that's mostly going to social services?
For the most part. However, we did get notified about a week ago that one of our ARPA grants on the BHDS side was drying up much faster than we thought. We thought we had it through September, but they said March 24th. That's going to be the end of your reimbursement for that. So even though they only get about 3.8 million on the BHDS side of federal funds, there is some of that is, and this one was a grant, so we knew eventually we were not going to have it. But we're working with HR and also the Office of Budget Management on how to manage what we had thought and projected through September.
Were they mostly grants, the federal funding?
Not all. Some of it is related to our prevention services, which to us is more ongoing. And also there's SOAR money in there, which is substance abuse, that's recovery funds, right, Angie? Yeah, she's nodding her head. So some of that is in there, but for the most part, it's on the federal side, it's on the social services side. Okay. And we're watching that too. Of course, we're watching what's happening with Medicaid. And if anything is to be rolled back in terms of expansion, that will affect the number of citizens in our city as well as across the state of Virginia that are receiving Medicaid. And therefore, since we're the public entity, we could see an increase in people needing our services. So we're watching that very carefully.
Thank you.
Just a quick follow-up and to acknowledge something you've done here is that, so taking on the community justice slide is 101 people you've moved, transferred, kind of like we were talking about libraries. There are departments that have to do it and that y'all are doing it quite well. And taking on a huge program and you're really virtually not asking for anybody, and you're actually saving money with what you're asking. So it's just kudos to everybody. But just to really say, you have 101 people going into this new roles, right?
Yes. And actually what we did with that one JDC position that I'm asking you for, it's to replace an assistant superintendent position. What we did is we took a vacant position, made it an assistant superintendent position because we knew we needed more support in the juvenile detention center. And then we took a vacant position in the agency and created our deputy director position. So you're correct. We did not come and ask for other positions other than the one JDC position to replace.
Did you say that again? I'm correct. My wife's
You're very correct. So correct that we made buttons for you.
He's like, no, it's secondary too.
Okay, anybody else? Amelia?
Thank you again, Arlene. We've known each other a long time.
It's been a pleasure.
I used to serve on CSB and PHB. I wanted you to explain a little bit more about that Community Justice Division.
Okay, wonderful. So what we found over time, for those of you who know the history of this agency, in 2004, Terry Jenkins put together and made a proposal to put together to Jim Spoor social services as well as the CSB side of the agency. So in 2004, this became this big agency of human services. Under the social services side, the Juvenile Detention Center kind of was there. The community supports for the probation and pretrial, they moved back and forth from social services to BHDS, but where they were in the last few years is under BHDS. What we did is we found those two departments in particular, Juvenile Detention Center and the pretrial for adults, did not really make sense in those areas. There are different regulations. There are also different funding streams. We're getting our budgets from different places. And therefore, moving them made sense, but it also made sense to provide them the support that they need, to be able to have that deputy director out there with them, really going to the board meetings with them that they need to, supporting those services, and also enhancing what we're doing for the juveniles and juvenile detention center. You saw we're doing something with libraries. We have done a lot of things with community providers to make sure that our kids have advanced education, vocational skills, all of that, we think that putting it under one community justice division is going to be able to help us to enhance that in the future. Not that if they weren't doing well under social services or BHDS, I'm not saying that, but I am saying that the alignment makes more sense to provide that support to them. So.
For you to know, those two big groups, I was the council person, one, for that entire group. So it's good to see, the change. Other thing I put down was new to me, the effective kin.
Fictive kin, right. So it's like natural supports. So say there is someone who is not a blood relative, but has been involved in that child's life since birth. They really think of them as their second grandma or something like that. Well, we're trying to place them with them instead of a foster care family that they don't know.
And the last point, I talked with Caitlin today because I said now I serve as an appointment for the State Executive Council for Children's Services.
Okay.
How could the two of you talk with me about the impact for Virginia Beach?
Okay.
That's something else.
Dr. Padotti? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, wonderful.
Thank
All
you.
right, sounds good.
Hey, anybody else? Once again, another hearty thank you from us. This is tremendous. It was mentioned before that we were recognized as being the caring city in this nation. And when you see a commitment of a department that has, 1,200 people in it and $157 million, and you are a broad spectrum department and you cover many areas that are essential needs, especially right now, post-COVID and in a tough economy, and where mental health services is a national crisis. Kudos to you and your crew.
Thank you very much. Very much appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to council discussion and comments. Anybody? Michael.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I just wanted to, I already talked about the Mountain Patrol and Animal Services Division, so I won't get into that any further, but I also wanted to mention that last week I had the privilege to attend the Touch a Truck event at Windsor Woods Elementary School, and it was amazing. And I could have gone to each department that presented today, had a truck or a vehicle or a deployment available to the Windsor Woods Elementary School students. You may recall that I've talked about this event before because it's annually produced by the team at Windsor Woods Elementary School, but it was outstanding. I mean, they had public utilities trucks, they had the National Guard, they had, of course, fire trucks, police. I mean, I could go on. They had a beehive. They had a lighting company that had the crazy party lights that they do. Stage Right Lighting, I want to give them a shout out. I mean, I think every city department was represented. And I think about when I was in elementary school, you have very few memories, from that, true memories from that era of our lives. And it's always events like that. They'll remember their teachers and they'll remember some things that happened in the classroom, but they mostly remember those kind of field day activities. And when they got to run around, and it was just amazing. So I want to really compliment and express my appreciation to the entire staff at Windsor Woods Elementary and all the parents. And in addition, especially all of the city departments and agencies and private sector. They had, plumbing companies, and the school division was out there. They had everything you can imagine in a truck or vehicle was out there. And it was really cool. So thank you.
Hey, Barbara. And then
Yes,
Amelia.
last Friday, the Green Ribbon Committee's sponsored its annual Albemarle North Landing Symposium, and it was extremely well done and very well attended with a broad spectrum of people. And I just really want to thank the staff who pulled it all together and all of the participants, and let you know, I mean, it was a full day of speakers on all these different topics, and extremely well done, and a lot of information that is important for us. And I think the thing, and one of the speakers who was from another planning district out west in the city indicated that one of the issues that they had was that everybody in Virginia seems to think that they drain toward the Chesapeake, but there's a very large portion of Virginia and Virginia Beach that drains to the Albemarle. As a matter of fact, more of Virginia Beach drains to the Albemarle than drains to the Chesapeake. And I think it's so important that we understand these two very different systems when we're dealing with stormwater issues and so forth. Makes it much more complicated for us because these two systems act very differently. The Albemarle is pretty unique in a lot of ways, but we have this association with North Carolina that we really have cultivated through these symposia, and I think it's very important for us, but they did a great job in pulling that together.
Okay, Amelia.
Very briefly, the HRT, as you know, I'm the liaison, a commissioner for that. The 22nd is Earth Day, so it's free for paratransit, for any of their services, light rail, ferry, and the buses. You can have a free ride wherever you're going on that day. And then they're also asking if anyone who wants to volunteer on that day to help clean up, tidy up some of the bus stops. You can contact them and it'll give you an hour to help tidy up one of those areas. And the last thing they're doing on that is on having council members or anyone ride along with them on that day. And I know the bus will be there. TCC is where we're going to start at noon, just for about an hour and a half. So if anyone's interested. And then the second thing I want to bring up is sadness about the loss of Dot Wood, who I got to know well, went to visit her, and especially her impact on helping to put together the Sandler Center. Besides that, one of the other things she did was students from Title I schools. She helped for funds so that they could go and see some of the performances. And she served on a lot of our commission and boards, and she will be dearly missed. I think they've said they're having a special reception for her at, is it 5 to 7 on Monday. So that's one of our, legends that if you have at the Sandler Center. So you never know what you do and how later on she is being remembered there. Her sons, you may know, former council member Jim Wood and his brother Chris Wood. So to keep that family in your prayers.
Okay. Anybody else? Worth?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be quick. Last Wednesday at the Zotters Theater, I attended the Tidewater Arts Outreach Gala. It's their 6th year at the Zotters, and that matches seniors with arts. It's a great event, and that's a little known to me, a charity, Tidewater Outreach for the Arts for seniors, and I congratulate them and continued success.
Hey, anybody else? Josh?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to share and thank those who were able to attend the Central Business District Association's 33rd Annual Internship Day Program in partnership with Princess Anne High School. There were maybe 130 plus students that participated. We had several city departments, including our police department, city manager's office, I think budget. There were some other departments that participated, and I don't know, it's one of the neatest things that organization does. I've been a part of it for a long time. I had 4 interns. Hopefully I didn't talk any of them out of going to law school like they want. But so it was great. And then also just a shout out to Councilwoman Henley. I was able to catch the first half of the symposium on Friday. It was very well done. There's so many, not our city staff. I mean, the opportunity for them to collaborate, be present, along with the industry professionals that you've put together with that initiative. I was just happy to be a part of it and be present. So thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
What district did they have it in? CBDA?
Well, Prince Anne High School's in 9, but we share town center.
I'm sure it was in District 7. Yeah, Stacy.
I'd just like to bring this up because I think it's going to take some time to ferret it out. But, in the city manager's proposed budget, the idea of this boat tax is creating a lot of havoc, a lot of controversy. I've been in discussions with the Commissioner of Revenue, and we're just not thinking that it's going to have the effect, the desired effect that's been presented. So I'd like for us to think about taking that off the table and maybe offering an alternative of maybe a one-time registration fee on purchase, but looking at an alternative means to raise the revenue that we're looking to raise, because this is just not being very popular. It's just not looking like it's going to have the effect that we were hoping it would.
Yeah, I concur. I think it's not going to be practical, and it could be one of those things that comes back to bite us in terms of a lot of people, shifting away and everything. Okay, Worth, and then Josh.
I'd just like to add on, and I concur, Councilman Cummings. I'm getting a lot of pushback on this, and I think the Commissioner of Revenue spoke to the problems in collections on the boat tax. I don't think this is a good step for the city. There is potentially an alternative of a registration fee. The Commissioner of Revenue is looking into that, so I'd like to see what we can do with that.
Josh, and then we got to get the close.
Yeah, I think I'd love to save this conversation for maybe a little bit of a different day, but I think the intention of what was put forward with trying to alleviate some pressure off the general fund and create a revenue source from taxpayers who are using the resource, who are depending on navigable waterways, who are depending on SSD, spur line, spur channel dredging, even some of our beach maintenance. I mean, one beach maintenance, one dredging would be like $3.5 million or whatever around that. So that's a dollar amount of the revenue that we're talking about. Certainly don't want to be insensitive as far as boat owners go, but I mean, if we're going to water it down with a registration fee concept, I would certainly want to talk about it being more than just like a one-time thing. So maybe more equitable across different like strata of tonnage or length or whatever. But I mean, I think the general fund needs help. We don't want to have to start making choices over spending money on sand or public safety apparatus. So anyway, those are my thoughts.
But Stacy, thanks for at least bringing it forward. I found out years ago when I was living in the People's Republic of New Jersey, they put a boat tax on, and they took the boats across the river to Pennsylvania. And the thing is, the boats, I think if I recall, Commissioner Kellum also brought up the fact that the boats here buy a lot of fuel here and, docking fees and things of that nature. But once again, that there's this thing called the law of unintended consequences. And we do need some dedication for the dredging. But once again, this could wind up being, a loss to us. But thanks for bringing it forward.
So, yeah. Mr. Mayor, we'll work to bring together an example of what an annual boat registration fee can be, and then council will take that as part of discussions and deliberations for reconciliation.
Okay, that'd be great. And just real quick before we get to the thing, they had the rodeo this weekend over at the oceanfront. And if you haven't seen it, it is really an event. And there were a couple thousand people there. And here we are in April, putting a lot of folks in hotels and things of that nature. But it was very well attended. And yes, and our folks from animal control were there to make sure everything went well. Okay. All right, Mrs. Henley, well, at this point, consent agenda.
The consent agenda, as you look at the ordinances, do you see any that we want to pull for discussion?
Yeah, Stacy?
I discussed the first item on ordinances about the local lease.
You want to pull that one for discussion?
I do.
Okay. So we will pull item 1. The other items, the 2 items that are ARP issues, the encroachment into the city property for West Canal, adopting the housing choice voucher 5-year agency plan, establishing a water meter replacement program, ordinance to appropriate money to the Plaza Volunteer Fire Company and the Chesapeake Beach Volunteer Fire Squad for their replacement apparatus.
That's the word of the day.
And an ordinance to transfer $1,283,119 from the general fund vacancy savings to the Public Works operating budget to replenish funds in the paving budget. So those things will be on the consent agenda.
Everybody else okay with that? Okay, good.
The planning items, Joel and Whitney Johnson for their subdivision variance on Gumbridge Road in District 2. I've heard no opposition. So we can put that on consent unless someone objects. Item 2, Boulevard hearings for holdings for a special exception for alternative compliance regarding their temporary commercial parking lot in District 5. Is that?
Rosemary.
She didn't have
Oh, okay, all right. So
That's right across the
Rosemary
street
says
from
it's no
District 6,
problem.
and it's fine.
Item 3, Bowers and Jones properties for a conditional use permit for short-term rental on Pacific Avenue, District 5.
This is the one she wanted, Vice Mayor Wilson asked to be continued till
Next time.
next time. I'll look at the date for sure. I'll go back on the email.
Okay, so this will be on consent agenda to
For
defer.
deferral, and I'll give you the date.
Okay. Item 4, Craig and April Dean for a conditional use permit for a short-term rental in District 6.
Consent agenda, please, for
Consent
item
agenda.
number 4, but not for number 5.
Item 5, you want to pull?
We have a speaker.
Oh, we have a speaker.
And we'll have some discussion,
Okay.
but I am going to move for
6,
approval.
An ordinance to amend Section 201 of the CZO regarding yards. No objection for consent agenda. And item 7, an ordinance to delete City Code Section 8-31.1 regarding fences and walls. Any objection to it being on the consent agenda? Okay, so that will also be consent.
Councilmember Henley, number 3, the Vice Mayor asked to have it deferred until May the 20th. May 20th.
May 20th, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so,
That's it.
all right.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this point, the chair will entertain a motion to recess into a closed session pursuant to the exemptions of the open meetings allowed by Section 2.23711A Code of Virginia as amended for the following purposes. Legal matters, consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring provision of legal advice by such counsel pursuant to Section 2.23711A8, and that's Back Bay Marsh Terraces Project and Atlantic Park. Publicly held property, discussion or consideration of the acquisition of real property for the public purpose or of the disposition of publicly held property where the discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiation strategy of the public body pursuant to Section 2.23711A3, and that would be District 5, District 6, District 9. And personnel matters, discussion, considerations, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of any public body pursuant to Section 2.23711A1, and that's appointments of council boards, commissions, committees, authorities, agencies, and appointees. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Okay.
Councilmember Berluci?
Aye.
Councilmember Cummings?
Aye.
Councilmember Henley?
Aye.
Councilmember Hutchinson?
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson Green?
Aye.
Councilmember Remick?
Aye.
Councilmember Alciana?
Aye.
Councilmember Rouse?
Aye.
Councilmember Shulman?
Aye. Aye. Okay, we are recessed into close. We have an interview.